Chapter 21, Amelia's Resolve. Elizabeth was snapped out of her thoughts by Paul's voice. It stopped. The pain stopped, he muttered. A dark shadow appeared on Clara's face. Neo died and curse on Paul lifted. It meant he didn't use curses. It was something else, she thought. He got us good. She was enraged. However, she reined her thoughts and focused. Elizabeth's curse was lifted only a few moments ago. If it was now, Clara might be able to finish her. The weapons floating in the room transformed. They aimed at Elizabeth when suddenly they exploded. Clara felt as if a truck rammed into her. Her body flew backwards and she broke through several walls. Did Neo stop you two alone? Elizabeth asked Paul. A-ah. He was still feeling the lingering pain and unable to answer. I asked you a question. Suddenly, an intense pressure smashed Paul into the ground. The weight slowly increased. Paul could feel his body crying in pain, however, unlike before, where Elizabeth stopped in the audience hall, she continued mercilessly. Elizabeth hated it. She did not want to see her children in pain. But she understood. They had crossed the line. It was either them or her. KRK. The floor cracked as the pressure doubled. He told us. He would kill us. If we didn't save you, Paul answered. How could Neo, an awakened demigod, threaten you and Clara? You two are far stronger than him. The tyrant queen added in a cold voice. Tell me everything without leaving anything out. Just as she finished her words, Clara returned with a strong vigor. Her body was covered in a silver armor and she held a spear. She was smashed into the ground, just like Paul, as soon as she entered the room. Paul was horrified when he saw his sister unable to do anything. He explained everything. From how they killed Neo, to how they lied to her about the purge, how Neo suddenly revived and tricked them into thinking he could use curses. Elizabeth's gaze softened. She caressed Neo's hair. He wasn't as strong as made himself look, in fact, he was extremely weak. Elizabeth saw and Amelia told her just how moving from one place to another was enough to tire him out. Still, he put himself on line to save her. Not once, but twice. He laid his life for her. Elizabeth knew he must have a reason to go to this extent to help her. However, it didn't change anything. He was the only one who helped her when everyone tried to stab her in the back. If it wasn't for him, she would have died, and blamed herself for everything that transpired. She was in his debt. A debt she wouldn't be able to repay, even if she gave him her life. After all, she could do it once, but he gave her his own life twice. Leave, Elizabeth commanded. I don't want to meet you two ever again. A beat later, she blasted Clara and Paul out of the palace. They wouldn't die from the attack. However, their injuries would take months to heal. It was weird. Despite everything, she couldn't kill them. A drop of tears slipped out of her eyes. What is this? I'm crying too much today. She wiped her eyes and looked at Neo's corpse. He was abnormal. Even if he was immortal, which Elizabeth doubted, he did not seem to care for his own life. True immortality did not exist. Elizabeth, after reaching exalted demigod rank, knew this for a fact. Some artifacts and abilities allowed one to circumnavigate around death. But all of them demanded a huge price. Death was impartial. If you wanted to cheat death, you must pay something of immeasurable value. What price did Neo pay? What kind of life did he live to die twice as if it was nothing? She was curious. It was the first time was interested in a person's life other than her family. She didn't understand why she felt like this. Mom. Amelia appeared. She was visible through the broken wall. Several of the Queen's personal guards followed her. What happened? I saw Sis and Paul were hurt. Before she could complete her words, the guards exploded into gory mist. Amelia froze. Why did you return? You should have evacuated already, Elizabeth asked as she beckoned Amelia to come to her. I couldn't leave you alone. Despite saying so, Amelia couldn't approach Elizabeth. The Queen killed the guards brutally. Had she really gone berserk? Suddenly, Amelia noticed the purple veins on Elizabeth's body had disappeared. The curse. It's cured. Amelia's eyes widened and she rushed at her mom. She hugged Elizabeth with a jump. Tears fell from her eyes. How? Neo forced the curse's caster to transfer the curse to him. He died in my place. Amelia felt shocked. Hearing her mother's words, she felt she might have thought wrong about Neo. Will he revive? He said he was immortal. Yes, I think he will. But it seems there is some sort of cool down in his ability. If Neo was here, he would have been shocked to know Elizabeth deduced his unique skill after hearing about it once and said as expected of an exalted demigod. A small smile appeared on Amelia's face. I need to thank Brother Paul and Sister Clara. If they hadn't found Neo, you would have. Hick. Hick. As Elizabeth patted Amelia's back. They didn't bring Neo to me. Neo brought them. Amelia felt there was something weird about her mother's words. Neo brought them? He needed the curse caster to transfer the curse. Amelia blinked. What was her mother trying to say? She understood her words, but the implications behind them made them impossible to be true. Clara could use curses. The words turned Amelia's world upside down. Her mind froze. She stared blankly into the air while Elizabeth explained everything to her. And no. That's not possible. This guy. Yes, Neo must have tricked you. Amelia. There is no way Paul and Clara will try to kill you. Amelia. There is no way. Hick. Hick. Elizabeth hugged Amelia as she cried her heart out. No matter how much Amelia tried to deny it, the truth was before her eyes. Chapter 22, Necrophilia Kink. No matter how much Amelia tried to deny it, the truth was before her eyes. Neo was dead after Clara transferred the curse to him, and her mother punished her siblings for the rebellion. Hours passed. Before long, Amelia stopped crying and remained motionless as she hugged her mom. I hate it. Amelia muttered. I hate Paul and Clara. I hate this country. I hate everyone who tried to kill you. Her words were laced with malice and impure intentions. Stop it. Elizabeth spoke. There is no need to take revenge. But I don't love this country anymore either. So, let's leave. Amelia agreed to her suggestion. But she wasn't satisfied leaving them alive after what they did to her mother. She wanted to make them go through worse pain. However, Amelia was weak. Only her mother could punish the rebels and she had refused to do so. So, she would bide her time. Until she was strong enough to crush this country and its people. When should we leave? And what about the international issues? Even if you step down, the major world powers won't accept your resignation without a proper reason. I know. That's why the tyrant queen must die today. Follow me. The queen stood up with a stagger. Amelia quickly moved and supported her. Thank you, as Elizabeth said. She flicked her finger and Neo's corpse floated behind her. Amelia alternated her gaze between her mother and the corpse. We can't leave him here. It seems he resurrects in the same vessel. After explaining, the queen opened a hidden corridor inside the wall. They moved through it and appeared on a hill far from the castle. From there, the castle and the capital city of the island mermaid country could be seen clearly. The queen went berserk and destroyed everything while killing herself in the chaos, Elizabeth said as she was supported by Amelia. She raised her arm. Her body quivered and a trail of blood left her lips. As if pulling something, she brought her hand down. In the distance, the Azure Spire Palace was flattened. Amelia could not feel the tremors since she was too far from the palace. However, she could see the landscape undergoing a terrifying transformation with a single gesture of her mother. The city sustained some damages and the palace was destroyed beyond recognition. With this, the queen is dead. Elizabeth puked blood. Mom. Don't worry. I just overexerted myself. Elizabeth sat down on the grassy ground. She could feel her consciousness slipping through her grasp. I'll take a short nap. As her heavy eyelids closed, he saw Neo, who lay next to her. Why hadn't he resurrected yet? A few hours had gone by since he died. Elizabeth couldn't help but worry if everything was all right. Underworld. Neo wiped the sweat. He stared at the corpses of Gulwalks scattered around. Splendid work, O great child of Monarch. You can rest now, the Grim Reaper said. Neo suddenly lost the strength in his body and fell on his back. Knowing he was safe, his body gave out. His time in Underworld was almost up. He didn't revive immediately after his death as he knew there was going to be a lot of work in the world of living, and he did not want to deal with it, but training in Underworld was anything but easy. Quest, he said in his mind. Quest, save the queen, completed. Water affinity awakened. Immortal XP plus 50. Status. Neo Hargraves. Rank, grade 5 awakened. Divine energy purity, grade 1 awakened. Stats. Strength, 20. Speed, 21. Dexterity, 17. Constitution, 14. Luck, 0. Affinity, death, shadow, darkness, void, water. Magic spell, necrotic touch. Bloodline, monarch of death. Unique skill, death, immortal. Quest, none. Neo gained only 1 strength with this time's training. It was far less than the 3 stats he gained last time. He needed to increase the training intensity if he wanted to keep up the growth rate of the stats. Unique skill, immortal. XP, 51 100ths. After confirming he received the rewards, he decided to return. "Oh great child of Monarch, we have a proposition," the Grim Reaper said. "Will you listen to us?" Speak. This was the first time the Grim Reaper spoke up. Neo was curious about what he had to say. "Since you have learned the basics of the combat and would soon begin training, we wish you would allow us to assist you." Neo was confused. Fighting multiple Gulwalks at once wasn't counted as training. In the Grim Reaper's eyes, what Neo did until now was no different from a kid trying to learn crawling. It was the basics of the basic. Okay, Neo nodded. He was going to regret it. He knew. He would soon curse his past self for agreeing to the Grim Reaper's request. But it was an opportunity to grow stronger. His growth was already stagnating and the Demigod Academy was about to start. Neo's current strength would place him in the bottom 10% at best. He was weak. So very weak. Even though he had necrotic touch, he was under a constant debuff in the living world, due to which he could use the spell not even 10 times. I wonder what kind of training he will prepare. Since he can give a tremor ranked spell like a candy, I bet his training will reap good rewards. Ding. Quest, complete training of the Grim Reaper, Barbados, Part 1. Reward, Holy Affinity. Nice, he thought when the quest arrived. Holy Affinity was as rare as Death Affinity. Moreover, it was strong against dark-type affinities. In normal circumstances, Neo would have been weak against holy magic users. However, as long as he completed the rewards and got the Holy Affinity, he would not have to worry about it. I'm looking forward to the training. Goodbye. We wish you a happy life, O great child of Monarch. Neo used the immortal skill. His vision went dark and he felt a pull. It felt like he was swimming against the current. Opening his eyes, Neo, revived, felt the divine energy being drained to heal his injuries. Ugh. I'll need to make sure I die with as less injuries as possible from next time. The energy expenditure to heal is no joke. Clarity returned to his eyes. He was lying on a grassy hill. Amelia sat on top of him, frozen, and stared at him with wide eyes. From the position of her hands on his shirt, it seemed she was trying to unbutton his clothes. I can explain, she stammered. Neo alternated his gaze between her hands and shocked expression. A sigh escaped his lips. Sorry. I didn't know you were into necrophilia. Had I known, I would've. Chapter 23, Big Problems. Neo apologized. Had I known about it, I would've revived after. I told you it is a misunderstanding. Amelia stood up and moved away. She couldn't decide if she should feel insulted, angry, or embarrassed. Your clothes were ruined. I didn't want to leave you looking like that and you were taking too long to revive, so I decided to. 2. Sneak a peek? No. As I said, it's a misunderstanding. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Amelia's ears turned beet red. Her reactions were funny. He wanted to tease her more but he felt windy down there. Neo looked at his clothes. Calling them ruined was underplaying it. After Clara gave him a beating, his clothes had more holes than a pampered kid's wallet. I'll take the clothes you prepared, he said. Thanks. He changed into the new set of attire prepared by Amelia. While he was changing, Amelia turned away. So, thank you for helping us, she spoke solemnly. Don't mind it. I didn't do it for free. Silence descended. Both of them said nothing. Neo was trying to think of his future plans. He didn't bother initiating a conversation. The quietness bothered Amelia and she spoke. Are you really immortal? Yes. Is that even possible? We were taught something else at the academy. Only now did Neo remember Amelia was a second year at Demigod Academy. In the novel, she left the academy since she had to take over the throne after her mother's death. Demigod Academy? Yeah. The professors taught us things about the great death god, Hades. He didn't seem to be a god who'd let even his children cheat death. Things, Neo didn't bother asking about details. He knew exactly how Hades was treated among the demigods and gods. They feared his powers, and no one truly respected him. The only reason Hades was one of the three great gods was due to his overwhelming strength. You are awake. Mom. Elizabeth returned. She stared at Neo silently. He returned her gaze. Why are you two looking at each other like that? Amelia stepped in between them. Nothing, Elizabeth answered. We should go. I've completed the preparations. She gave a bag to Amelia. The three moved down from the hill and went into the direction of the beach. They traveled through forests by foot to make sure no one found them. It took them a few hours to reach their destination. Both Elizabeth and Neo were exhausted by the end. Should we rest? Amelia asked. We haven't had dinner yet. 2. We can take a break later. Let's eat while we are moving, Neo spoke. Elizabeth agreed with him. She whistled after standing at the seashore. Neo was looking at the sea to find the approaching azure dragon when suddenly the clouds parted. The moonlight fell through the gaps and an azure sea dragon descended from the sky. It had silver scales and was at least 5 times larger than the previous dragon Neo met. The dragon landed on the beach. It made a pleasing grunt when it saw Elizabeth and Amelia and allowed them to caress its body. You can touch him, Amelia told Neo. Just as Neo was about to place his hand on the silver scales of the dragon, it snorted and an invisible force pushed Neo back. Neo heard Amelia laughing beside him. Jerna doesn't like anyone besides us touching him, Amelia smirked and rubbed the dragon's belly to brag. He looked back at the dragon. For some reason, he could by looking at the dragon's eyes. If he tried to touch it again, it would crush him. Stop being stubborn, Jerna. We have to leave, Elizabeth said. The dragon whimpered as if complaining, but when it saw Elizabeth wasn't joking, it relented. Now allowed to touch the dragon, Neo climbed on its back with Elizabeth's help. She carried Amelia and him with divine energy. Depart, Elizabeth commanded. The dragon took off to the skies. It went above the cloud of seas and flew freely in the air. The journey was uneventful. They passed over the clouds and the hurricanes, so there wasn't much to see. After they left the waters area of Mermaid Country, Neo finally relaxed. Where are we going? He asked. Amelia will return to the Demigod Academy. As for me, I still have to make a decision. Elizabeth answered. Where should we drop you? Neo made a deliberate pause to make it look like he was uncertain. I have to go to the academy too. Amelia and Elizabeth didn't appear surprised for some reason. He continued. But how about we go to the Divine Water Cave first? It would help us speed up our recovery. Good idea. I'll give you the things you asked in there. Elizabeth agreed to his suggestion. Wait, what? Suddenly, Amelia looked at them wide-eyed. What are you going to give him? I'm not letting you marry him. Elizabeth shook her head and spoke with a sorrow voice. But that was the deal. How can I, Elizabeth de Beaufort, turn back on my words? Despite her expressionless face, Neo could see mischief hidden in her eyes. He could understand why she was teasing Amelia. Her reactions were just too cute. The banters between the mother and the daughter continued until they reached the Divine Water Cave. Before the dragon dived into the seawater, Neo's brows furrowed. He forgot to bring his diving gear. A smirk appeared on Amelia's face. What happened? Can't breathe underwater, Mr. Exalted Demigod? Neo shrugged. He didn't feel bad about tricking her back then. After all, it was a matter of life and death for him. Stay close to me. Elizabeth created a sphere of air before the dragon dove into the sea. The air bubble allowed him to breathe. They floated towards the underwater cave's entrance. I'll enter first. Follow behind me, Elizabeth said, and changed the shape of the air bubble to cover only Neo. Just as she swam in between the coral reefs, a problem appeared. Her chest was stuck in the narrow entrance. Chapter 24, It is bigger than my hand. Just as she swam in between the coral reefs, a problem appeared. Her chest was stuck in the narrow entrance. Neo and Amelia stared at her with awkward gazes. Turning his head, Neo subconsciously compared Elizabeth with Amelia. There is a room for a lot of development. He shook his head in disappointment. It seemed Amelia failed to inherit good qualities from her mother. Or maybe, Amelia took after her birth mother. Neo wouldn't know since he never met Elizabeth's twin sister. Mom, do you need help? A pulsive wave passed through the undersea and suddenly the seabed was ripped apart until miles. Elizabeth, after changing the underwater landscape, turned to them. Amelia is claustrophobic, so I enlarged the entrance. It shouldn't be uncomfortable anymore. Huh? I'm not Claus. You are, sweetie. You just don't know because you've never been in confined spaces. Her expressionless face was saying to never bring up the topic again. Neo would be lying if he said his eyes didn't wander to inappropriate places. He moved his gaze away before Elizabeth could catch him. It was already morning by the time they entered the underwater cave. Thankfully, it was not destroyed by Elizabeth's rampage. Amelia left the underwater cave after a short rest. They ran away from the mermaid country without bringing anything except food. So Amelia was going to buy the basic necessities from the city while Neo and Elizabeth used the divine water pond. You can enter the pond first, Elizabeth told him. Neo didn't refuse. After making sure Elizabeth was looking in another direction, he removed his clothes and sat inside the divine water pond. He could feel his exhaustion disappearing. It was a good idea to listen to Elizabeth's advice. Just when he thought that, Elizabeth entered the pond. Naked. Neo's mind replayed the scene like a broken tape recorder. Elizabeth's slender white neck gave way to delicate shoulders, leading down to a perfectly proportioned bust. Her waist was narrow, accentuating the soft curves of her hips, which moved with a fluid grace. Every time she took a step, the twin mountains quivered ever so slightly. They were big, bountiful, and beautiful. They swayed with the movements of her arms, making him think that they had a strange force of attraction. Neo was slightly surprised when she sat inside the pond and they floated. His blood rushed towards his waist and he felt his little brother saluting at the tear-jerking sight. You shouldn't stare so openly, Elizabeth told him with a smile. I'm not the one who came naked even though there was someone in the pond, he said. Besides, I'm letting you see me. So, it's an equal exchange. Elizabeth chuckled at his boldness. She looked below after breaking the eye contact with him. Her eyes slightly widened. She approached him and grabbed his little brother. It's bigger than my hand, her voice was filled with astonishment. Neo.exe crashed. All he felt was her hot breath tickling his skin and her soft, small hands on his little brother. It was dangerous. He could feel the dam threatening to burst. Amelia told me she saw you naked. No wonder she was afraid after seeing this. Elizabeth stretched her thumb and pinky and tried to measure his little brother. She was close enough that a little more and he could touch those mountains. Neo didn't know what to do. After coming to this world he learned a lot. But nothing prepared him on how to respond to this kind of temptation. His pain tolerance, aura of death, and otherworldly reflexes. Nothing was useful. Neo moved on his instinct's guidance and grabbed a mountain with his right hand. His fingers sunk into the marshmallow-like ground. Acting on autopilot, he pinched the red peak. What are you doing? I'm following your lead. Neo answered in a daze. He failed to notice the blush on Elizabeth's face. Before he could check the firmness of the other peak, she let go of his little brother and retreated. Let's not digress. I came here to teach the tremor ranks spell we had the deal about. Here. The divine water pond will help you replenish your divine energy quickly. This is a good place to learn the spell faster. While Neo's brain told him the spell was important, his little brother explained not everything was about strength and some chances came only once in a lifetime. Neo agreed with his little brother. He approached Elizabeth. We can learn the spell, but shouldn't you teach me first about what are you two doing? Amelia's icy voice rang. Neo turned his head and noticed her at the cave entrance. She stared at him with a cold, disgusted gaze. Seeing her, his little brother returned to sleep instantly. His desires were vanquished and he came to understand the futility of the immoral temptations. Neo got out of the pond. He dried himself with a towel before dressing himself. Why do you always come at the worst time? I'm starting to think it's your hobby to peek at naked people, he spoke. Why you? She glared at him as if he was her mortal enemy. Which wasn't exactly wrong considering he was getting steamy with her mother. Why were you naked with him, Mom? She turned to Elizabeth after she realized speaking to Neo was like shouting at a rock. I didn't want to ruin my clothes, Elizabeth answered with a flushed face. She seemed more embarrassed now than she had been with Neo moments ago. What do you mean? Amelia narrowed her eyes. We don't have money. If I ruined the clothes I had on me, I would have nothing left to wear, she gave an excuse. Amelia's face stiffened. She had, in anger, refused to bring the money, weapons, and anything else from the mermaid country. Even the food was fruits Elizabeth collected from the wild. Back then, Amelia said she would rather die than take anything from their country. It wasn't her fault they were penniless. But she could have brought money if she wanted. She wasn't completely faultless. Chapter 25 Ocean's Embrace. Stella stood beside Diana on the rolling meadows of the wilderness. Standing between her and the distant red vine peak, which looked so small on the horizon, was a true titan of wood. Did Ashlock call him Titus? Diana questioned from the side. Dark blue flames corrupted with demonic chi flickered across her skin and down the length of the sword that hung loosely in her hand, with the tip aimed at the grass. Yeah, Ash also said Titus was in the 5th stage of the Star Core realm. Stella frowned and bit her lower lip. That meant this behemoth was on par with the Redclaw Grand Elder, a man that had cultivated for centuries and had likely fought in more wars than years she had been alive. The fact that Ash had created such a thing within seconds from a corpse was something only a god should be capable of. Stella tightened her hand around the grip of the sword Ash had gifted her. She needed to get stronger, faster. When she was the only one around, Ash gave her all the tasks. Then others arrived, and fewer jobs found their way to her. And now Elaine and the Redclaw Grand Elder know how to translate the ancient language. What's my purpose, then? I can't negotiate as well as Diana, I don't have as much knowledge as Elaine, and I can't build things like Douglas. Even this stupid titan of wood has spatial chi and is in a higher realm than me. You always make that face when you have pointless thoughts, Diana said flatly. Stella sighed and hit the tip of her sword against the lush grass underfoot. The breeze out here was warm and refreshing, and the expansive blue sky overhead devoid of clouds did help to lift her spirits somewhat. I know. Stella absent-mindedly replied, her thoughts still spiraling. She knew her anxiety wasn't logical, but it was hard not to feel inferior and fear losing the respect of the one she looked up to when she fell behind her peers. Diana glanced around as if searching the distant horizon for something and whispered, "Want to see something freaky?" Stella blinked, "Yes." "Do I? I don't like that face you're making. Why are you smiling like that?" "Oh, I'm only getting started," Diana grinned as mist cascaded off her body and blanketed the area. A moment later, Stella couldn't even see the looming titan anymore, it was just the two of them surrounded by a dense swirling fog. "Remember when you saw my fangs? And I told you I would tell you about it when I was ready?" "Yeah." "Oh," Stella's eyes widened as she noticed Diana's teeth took on a sharper edge, and there were now 2 prominent fangs. "Like them?" Diana ran her tongue across their tip. "I didn't want to show them off in front of Ashlock as I wasn't sure how he would respond, so I thought of showing you first." Stella tilted her head and realized something. "So that's why you suggested we fought Titus out here?" "Well, that and other reasons." Diana shrugged. "I mean, just one look at the thing, and it's obvious why fighting it on the mountain peak was a bad idea. Also, I know Ashlock somehow sees through my mist, but at least this way, I am near the wilderness and can run away if needed. Run away over some fangs. Stella squinted. There's no way you thought some fangs would even phase Ash. He eats people, Diana. Why would some elongated teeth bother him? Ah, Diana chuckled, this is just the beginning. As those words left her mouth, she blinked her gray eyes away and replaced them with liquid darkness that seemed to stare into Stella's soul. Demonic chi rippled through the surrounding mist and seemed to pour toward Diana and swirl around her fingers, forming inch-long claws of shadow around her hands. Stella thought that was it, but then two large feathered wings sprung from her back and fanned out, showing off their glory as they towered over Diana. Taken by surprise, Stella stepped back. The extreme transformation had occurred so quickly she was baffled. What the hell had happened to Diana in that mystic realm? Stella thought she had emerged from that realm of liquid metal and wrathful storms as a new person, but Diana, was she even the same species anymore? Diana had always been pretty, but now she looked seductive, which made Stella a little uncomfortable. It's the stark difference that's making me freak out. Just calm down. It's the same old Diana you always knew. You can grow used to this form with time. But darn, why is her bust like that? And that hourglass figure, nope. I can't get used to this. So, Diana said in the same flat voice that didn't match her body, what do you think? Have you become a succubus? Diana pouted, no, I'm a demon. Stella snorted, succubus is a type of demon. I'm not a succubus. Diana groaned in annoyance, I have no plans or capabilities to go around seducing men or women and sucking out their souls. Suck. Stella leapt backward just in time as the mist parted to reveal a massive blackwood fist that barreled downward and smashed into the ground with enough force to send out a shockwave of wind and rock that Stella had to raise her hands and cycle her chi to avoid being turned to meat paste by. Stella closed her eyes and the world transformed into grids. She quickly compressed the spatial plane and tore open a rift through the stacked grids. The air popped into her ears as she reappeared on the Titan's shoulders. Aren't you curious about how I became a demon? No questions at all. Diana's head popped into view past the Titan's nose as she asked from the other shoulder of the Titan. Her eyes of liquid darkness unnerving Stella. How did she get up here so fast? Stella wondered as she diverted her gaze and looked down at Titus's arm, coated in a haunted mist. Ah, I see now. She must have dashed through the mist. Questions, you say? Stella said as she coated her sword in soul flames and raised it overhead, readying to strike the Int's head. Diana mirrored the action and with a mutual nod, they both hit the wooden skull simultaneously. Stella's blade bit into the thick twisted black wood that made up Titus's form but only a fingernail deep. Meanwhile, Diana's blade completely bounced off, her peak soul fire realm flames unable to pierce Titus's defenses. Titus roared, and Stella and Diana met each other's gaze and exchanged a plan without words. Stella blinked, returning to the spatial plane, and created a portal behind her. Diana charged into her, pushing both of them through the portal right as fifth stage star core flames erupted from the gaps in the black wood, turning the Titan's shoulders into a death trap. I guess I do have a few questions, Stella laughed as they observed the raging Titan a mile away from within a nearby forest. Such as why you turned into a succubus. Don't worry, I can change my looks to an extent. Diana rolled her black eyes. What part do you have an issue with? Do you think this would scare away a future husband? Stella looked her up and down, eyes are a bit creepy, wings and claws could be toned down a bit, and your changed figure is way too much. Stella then tapped her chin as an idea came to mind, actually, you can switch between that and being human, right? Yes. Diana replied skeptically, what are you scheming, Stella? Initially, I was in shock because of how drastic the changes were, but in a way, that's a good thing. How so? Well, Elaine referred to you as the Mist Demon. And now that I see you like this, why not embody that title? Stella laughed, turn into this form when you need to conduct some murder on behalf of the Ashfallen sect and then appear as an innocent human the rest of the time. So you're saying this form has a purpose? Diana said over the rumbling of Titus striding toward them with lumbering steps that shook the earth. Kind of an odd approach, but I like the sound of it. While Diana was mulling over her words, Stella wandered over and couldn't resist touching Diana's wings. Up close, she could tell they weren't solid but a manifestation of demonic chi in the shape of raven wings. She reached over and could feel Diana's gaze as she tried to touch the feathers. I wouldn't if I was you. Stella ignored her warning but paid for it as she winced in pain with a hiss while nursing her hand. Ow ow ow, that hurt way more than expected. Diana chuckled. What did you expect? It's pure demonic chi. Can you fly? Ow. With these? Stella asked through gritted teeth as she cycled her chi to rid her fingertips of the lingering demonic chi. Expelling it was a simple matter with her star core realm chi, but that just made Stella more concerned about how powerful Diana would become in the future. The shadow wings flapped, but nothing happened. Nah, I can't, maybe when I reach star core I will be able to. Actually, speaking of that, have you tried to fly around on a sword yet? Diana then gestured over her shoulder at Titus, who was a few steps away, glaring at them with wrathful eyes of lilac flame. Could be useful to fight this big guy. Stella threw her sword to the floor and flexed her star core to reach out and make it float. It wasn't quite something that came instinctually, but it wasn't that hard either. Want to go for a ride? Stella gestured to the floating sword but then glanced at Diana's claws. But no claws, we will be going through rifts, so you will need to hold on to me. Diana shrugged, and the manifested claws of demonic chi retracted, revealing her usual petite human hands. They looked so harmless compared to the claws she had just seen. Ashlock was overseeing Titus from afar, but he was half distracted by what he had seen from Diana. Had Larry meant this demonic form when he claimed he smelt something ancient on Diana? Either way, he thought her new form had potential, as Stella had pointed out. Demonic chi acted a lot like void chi in its destructive capabilities, so the fact Diana could wield its power and even manifest it gave her a massive leg up on everyone else. She basically had a dual affinity and a whole separate form to make use of. But Larry claimed he smelt the same thing on both Diana and Stella. Therefore, will Stella have some type of form like this one day? Ashlock wondered. He couldn't imagine Stella as a demon, so what would she become? Something to do with lightning, perhaps. That aside, he noticed the golden sun nearing the horizon. It had taken hours for him to charge Titus with enough chi to operate independently for a while, as he wanted to test the Int's battle capabilities without his help. So the day was almost over. From overhead with Eye of the Tree God, Ashlock witnessed Stella step onto the sword, followed closely by Diana, who perched on the back. Due to the sword's length being so short, Diana had to wrap her arms around Stella's waist to avoid falling off. Ashlock could see a sheen of spatial chi leave Stella and wrap around Diana, and then the two vanished. Ashlock had commanded Titus to try and restrain the girls with any means necessary but not to kill them, as he wanted to test the creature's intelligence, which so far seemed relatively high. If he had told Titus to kill them, they likely would have died when they had been talking in the mist, as they had been distracted, and Titus missed on purpose, showing that he understood Ashlock's command of restraint. Titus sent out a pulse of spatial chi like an imp, and Ashlock was surprised to see the chi wave seem to travel through reality and smash into Stella and Diana, who had been briefly traversing the spatial plane. Reality snapped, and they were thrown out of a half-formed tier. As they were spiraling through the air, Titus's eyes glowed with power, and even from this far away, Ashlock could feel the immense pressure exerted by a fifth-stage Star Core realm monster that was 20 meters tall. The sheer size of Titus's Star Core gave him an immense gravitational field and overall power. Still, the downside was how fast he burned through his chi reserves, which in turn was terrible for Ashlock because he was the one who would need to charge him back up while having a Star Core of a similar size and 2 realms lower. Stella and Diana had crash-landed with some grace and now stood defiantly on the ground as the Titan's black wood fist descended, casting a shadow so large it was as if there was a solar eclipse. Ashlock was confused why they were just standing there and became concerned when Stella tried to activate her spatial technique to escape, but it didn't work as a concentrated pulse of spatial chi left the Titan's fist and slammed into them, shattering the forming portal. Luckily, Titus had been ordered not to kill, so rather than crush them like a person killing a fly by slamming a hardcover book on its head, Titus opened up his fist and surrounded the girls with his fingers as if trying to trap them. Diana felt the ground below her churn as the space around her gradually constricted. Sunlight streamed in through the small gaps between the Int's fingers buried deep in the earth and its palm overhead, acting as the roof of the prison they found themselves in. The air seemed to wobble and distort as it became suffocated with spatial chi. Clearly, the Titan had decided to entrap them both physically and with chi, as Stella couldn't use her techniques when Titus lorded over all of the spatial chi in the area. "Stella, come with me," Diana shouted to the girl. She was staring absent-mindedly at her fingers, covered in a flickering spatial flame that was likely her own. Diana knew exactly how she felt because she had experienced the same whenever her father had decided to flex his power to teach her a harsh lesson. It was known that those in higher realms could suppress those in lower ones, but it was also possible for those within the same realm to achieve the same to a lesser effect if the gap in stages was big enough. Glancing up at the closing and palm dead set on crushing them, Diana felt the impending doom from the ant that was around the fifth stage. With a star core so large that it was incomparable to a human one because they were merely fist-sized. This size difference gave it a tremendous advantage. Stella simply never stood a chance in a contest of spatial chi. "Stella, we need to leave," Diana gripped her shoulder, shocking the girl from her dazed state. "I can break us out of here." "Oh. Alright," she seemed depressed, but now wasn't a good time. Diana led Stella through the closing space toward the largest gap near the thumb. Feeling within herself for her soul core that felt like a tiny and useless pebble compared to Stella and Titus, Diana let the demonic chi being suppressed by her water chi be fully unleashed. She gritted her teeth as her muscles rapidly expanded and felt like they were cooking in hellfire. Her vision became a hazy red and her mind became chaotic with wrathful thoughts. The usual wall to her emotions she had built up crumbled, and much of the misery she had bottled up rushed throughout her body. She just wanted to scream, rage, punch a wall and snap someone's neck. Diana funneled this insanity all toward a single goal: break through the black bark of a star core monster. Something inconceivable for someone in an entire realm and many stages below, but that was the one upside of being overwhelmed with demonic chi. Destructive power. Coating her hands in the darkness of her soul, she brought her fist back and struck out at the thumb, alongside both of her demonic chi wings that thrust forward. A large chunk of the Titan's thumb was disintegrated into nothingness as if a projectile from a god had smashed into it. Escaping into the sunlight, Diana manically laughed as she finally felt physically and spiritually free. Ashlock brought Stella back to the mountain peak and the girl slothfully collapsed onto the bench. She was alone as Diana was still busy being crazy. Titus and the demon girl were having a lovely brawl out in the wilderness and going wild. This was actually an excellent test for Titus as he would need to face the beast tide in the future, which may include monsters that wielded demonic chi. So far, Titus's defenses and regeneration seemed to be significantly affected by attacks inflicted via demonic chi. Which made sense. Titus was a tank, and the counter to anything tanky was true damage. Basically, damage capable of ignoring or piercing defenses easily. Usually at the cost of something else. In this case, sanity. Ashlock wasn't sure when Diana would regain her senses and leave this berserk state, but he hoped it would be before Titus ran out of spatial chi and could no longer regenerate or fight back. "Hey, Larry," Stella called out to the behemoth spider that had happily settled in the canopy of one of the demonic trees. "Yes, mistress," Larry said gruffly as he crawled down the trunk of the tree. His many red eyes dead set on her as she lounged on the bench. "You said that Diana and I smelled ancient, and now Diana has awakened as a demon. So tell me, what smelled ancient about me?" Stella said impatiently. "Was it because of that pill Senior Lee gave me? Did that make me special?" Larry shook his head. "It has nothing to do with the pill. Like Diana, you likely have a dormant ancient bloodline. She treads the path of a demon because that had always been dormant within her." Stella frowned as she processed the spider's words. "But I have never felt any dormant thing within me. Mistress, your bloodline may still be dormant for a good reason." "Which is?" Larry crawled closer and flexed the ash around his crown of horns. "The blood of a ruler takes longer to bloom." Chapter 26, Unknown Caller. "As for the reward for saving me." She looked at Amelia, who had fallen asleep. "I can't give it you right now. You should know the reason since you want the weapon." The replica of Poseidon's trident was a powerful weapon. But there were weapons stronger than it. The reason the trident was special was due to its immortal slayer trait. It could kill immortals, beings like Neo. He didn't need the weapon because it was powerful. By taking it himself, He wanted to make sure nobody else got their hands on it. After all, when the news of him being Hades' kin and an immortal spreads, the world powers would mark him as a potentially dangerous demigod, and look for methods to contain him in case he went berserk or rouge. It was not just him. A counter-strategy was created for every powerful demigod and demigods with powerful bloodlines. It was a necessary practice. Because it wasn't just once or twice a demigod gave into the temptations of outer gods and switched sides. Don't worry. I won't break my promise. I'll give the weapon to you. It's currently sealed under the Mount Columbus. I need time to break the seal. Since I have to visit the academy, I'll bring it to you there. Elizabeth had been prepared for her death. She made sure to hide a dangerous weapon like the Poseidon's trident. It couldn't be allowed to fall in wrong hands or the damage would be catastrophic. I understand, Neo said. He couldn't wait to get it. They took another day of rest and left for the city. After arriving on a secluded part of Oklahoma Beach, Amelia and Neo got off the dragon. I'll return after leaving Journa somewhere safe, Elizabeth told them. You two go to the academy. We'll meet there. She was probably going to collect the trident. After she left, Neo and Amelia walked down the beach together. They remained silent. Neo stopped after an hour-long walk. He was sweating heavily and feeling tired. The whole event with the mermaid country took a lot out of him, and training a tremor rank spell after that broke the camel's back. Can we rest? He asked while he sat on the roadside bench. Amelia stared at him and left without speaking anything. Was she going to the academy alone? Maybe I underestimated how angry she was with me. Neo smiled bitterly. Then again, if he had a chance, he would do everything he did back then and more. 15 minutes later, when he was about to stand, Amelia returned. She passed him a canned drink. It's an energy drink, she told him. It should help you. Did she leave to bring this? They were on a secluded road that ran next to the shore. Amelia must have gone quite far to buy the drink. Maybe his surprise showed on his face, because she said, I'm not angry with you. I don't like what happened in the cave, and that's all. I can never hate you after all what you did for Mom. I'm not that stupid. Her words were nice. But the way she repeatedly said she wasn't angry with him. Yeah, he didn't believe her. Neo decided to watch his back during the nights, lest he got stabbed by her. We should move. Neo's phone suddenly rang and he couldn't complete his words. He took it out. The number was from an unknown caller. He might have ignored in normal circumstances. But his phone did not have towers before they reached the Oklahoma Beach. There was a slight chance the caller was someone who knew Neo Hargraves. Let me pick this up, he told Amelia and answered the call. The caller spoke. Where the fuck are you, you fucking cunt? Do you know? Neo cut the call. Who was it? Your family? Amelia asked. It was a misdialed number. He seems quite angry at whoever he was calling. The call arrived again from the same number. Are you sure you don't know the number? Amelia questioned. I'll check. He picked the call. Hello. Motherfucker, how the fuck did you dare cut the call? Do you have a death wish? Who is this? I'm sorry I don't recognize you. Suddenly, the caller went silent. He took a huge breath and exploded. This fucking shit again. I swear you need to find more excuses, you fucking whore. Wrong number. Neo hung up. The call did not come again. Amelia stared at Neo with a peculiar expression. The caller was so loud she could hear him even though the call wasn't on speaker. There are all sorts of people in the world, she chuckled awkwardly. They were about to leave when suddenly the call returned. Neo ignored it. The call kept arriving. Once. Twice. 10 times. Neo, irritated, answered the call to tell off the caller. Neo, you fucking asshole. First, you apply to the academy without telling me, then you disappear for weeks, and now you are ignoring my calls. He could image the veins exploding on the caller's neck. I swear if you hang up on me this time, I'll fucking kill you. You know me. Don't break the phone again, don't break the phone. The caller muttered some words that were too quiet for Neo to hear. Sigh, where are you, Neo? Neo didn't answer immediately. The caller knew his name. Was he Neo's friend? However, it was weird the caller's name was not saved on the smartphone. Since he knows I'm going to the academy, we are going to meet one way or other, Neo thought. But he sounds dangerous. It's best if I meet him after we've rendezvoused with Elizabeth. She can protect me if something goes wrong. Neo was about to hang up when suddenly he heard a second voice from the caller's side. Sir, we've traced the call's location. Amelia's eyes widened. She snatched the phone from Neo's hand. Before she could break it, the caller began to laugh hysterically. Neo, did you hear that? The caller spoke in a low tone. You are fucking dead. Chapter 27, Tsundere Villain. Who was this person? And don't you dare say you don't know him because the caller definitely knew you. Amelia held his hand and dragged him away. They had to leave before the caller came to find them. Neo could only divert her question. He didn't know the caller's identity himself. Can you contact your mother? We might need her help. I can't, since I stayed with you two all the times. I had no chance to buy a smartphone for her. It took them a few dozen minutes to find a taxi. They asked the taxi driver to take them to Bullet Train Station. From there, they purchased a ticket for the station nearest to the academy. Neo didn't know why, but he was sweating heavily. It seemed to him that his body recognized the caller's voice and was afraid to meet him. As soon as they got off from the bullet train, they realized something was wrong. Get ready to fight. I know. The station was empty. The people on the train were being stopped from getting off. Who is it? Who has the power to evacuate a whole station in broad daylight, thought Neo. They waited. But nothing happened. What should we do? Amelia asked. Waiting won't change anything. Let's try to leave the station, Neo said. As they walked, they noticed that the staff members were also missing. The station looked like a ghost town. Suddenly, Neo noticed a presence. He signaled Amelia towards the man at the station's entrance. The man, a blonde, had a scar that ran from his right eye to his lower jaw. He was extremely handsome. He wore a black suit and puffed a smoke. You are 2 minutes late. Do you understand you just wasted my 2 millions? The man said. The voice matched the caller. Neo recognized the identity of the man from the scar. First Elizabeth and now him? Why am I getting entangled these types of people, he thought worriedly. Get in the car. The man threw the cigarette before sitting inside the car parked at the entrance. Amelia raised her bow. We should fight. He doesn't seem strong, so. No, let's listen to him. Neo told her with a dry throat. The man, Henry Hargraves, was as dangerous as Elizabeth, perhaps even more. Henry Hargraves? The same Hargraves as Neo Hargraves? Brother? Neo asked cautiously. Henry lowered the window and gave him a stare. What? Did you get your memory back? Henry scoffed and opened another cigarette. Amelia visibly relaxed after knowing he was Neo's brother. She wanted to ask why Neo had been acting as if he didn't know him, but, judging from Neo's expression, she felt there might be bad blood between them and remained silent. Should we enter the car? She asked. Yeah. Amelia and Neo sat in the back seat while Henry drove the car. The car moved through the busy road for dozens of minutes. Just when Amelia felt something was wrong, they stopped at a red light and Henry looked in the mirror. Did you go to the mermaid country? Yes. TCH, you look famished, fucker. Did you fucking eat something or not? Henry took a puff of smoke. And why is that bitch's daughter with you? Amelia reacted when he insulted a mother. But Neo stopped her by placing his hand over her hand. Don't move. Please don't move, Neo tried to tell her with his eyes. Henry and Elizabeth had bad blood between them. He hated Amelia because he couldn't kill Elizabeth with his own hands. After Henry went rogue in the novel, the first harem member he killed was Amelia. Henry continued to talk. Anyway, why did you go to the mermaid country? To heal the queen. There was no point in lying. Henry could find the information easily with his contacts. Fucking shithead, won't you try to deny the responsibility like you always do? Henry threw the cigarette butt from the window and pulled out another from the pack. He took a puff. Fuck. I couldn't even sleep because of you, fucker. What do you mean? Ha 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 ha, look at his dickhead. Do you seriously don't know what is happening? Henry saw Neo's frown and Amelia's confused expression. You really don't know? Wow, fuck. He pulled out a newspaper from the car's footwell and threw it at Neo. Neo read the headlines. Those fucking fishes said you had a hand in bitch's death and you kidnapped her daughter. Congratulations, fucker, you are an internationally wanted criminal. Senior Templars are already after your ass. What? That's a lie. He didn't do anything wrong. He is the one who saved you, ouch. Neo pinched Amelia's hand before she revealed Elizabeth was alive. She looked at him with confused eyes. He shook his head and looked at Henry. I hope you took care of the issue. Of course, there is no way I'd let those damned fuckers harm my little fucking shit of a brother. The red light turned green. Henry stopped speaking and focused on driving. Who is your brother? Amelia whispered. Is he an exalted demigod? How can he stop Senior Templars and talk like it was nothing? No, he is a normal person. In simpler terms, Henry couldn't awaken his god blood. Then, how? Amelia asked. He is rich. Filthy rich. Amelia closed her mouth and looked at him as if she couldn't believe her ears. However, he wasn't lying. Wealth was just another form of strength. The car stopped in front of a high-end restaurant. Henry got off. Bitch, come out. I can't stand any more looking at a starved fish like you. We are going to stuff you until you explode. While Amelia and Neo followed Henry into the restaurant, she leaned towards him and whispered. He loves you despite how he acts, doesn't he? She giggled. I know what they call people like him. Tsundere. Neo gulped as he noticed her impression of his brother improving. Henry certainly loved his brother. When Henry's brother mysteriously passed away in the novel, he believed his brother died in Academy's ranking competition and turned against the Academy. In later stages, Henry razed half of the continent to the ground and killed majority of the characters and harem members. Henry did all of this because he wanted to avenge his brother. And Neo wasn't his brother. I'm fucked if he finds out I took over his brother's body. Chapter 28, Should I Kill Her? Neo didn't like taking over Neo Hargrave's body and living while tricking his family. However, he had no intention of revealing his identity. Neo was a victim too. He never asked to possess someone else's body. He just woke up one day and found he became Neo Hargrave's. Eat, bitch, Henry said. They sat on a table filled with lavish food. Neo did not touch the food immediately. Aren't you curious how I thought I could save the queen? I am, Henry answered. But we can talk after you aren't hungry anymore. Neo chewed the food with slow, graceful movements. It was awkward. He was trying his best to imitate what he thought was Neo Hargrave's behavior. This must be how rich people ate. Why the fuck are you eating so slowly? Did you hit your head? Or are you trying to look cool because of that bitch's daughter next to you? Apparently Neo Hargraves was different from his imagination. Neo let go off the weird way he was eating and started to eat normally. He looked at Amelia. Don't sit there and stare at me. That asshole just said. Eat, he told her. Neo peeked at his brother. Even though he called him asshole, he did not react. As expected, these guys talk like this, he thought. How did you stop Mermaid Country from coming after Neo? Amelia asked after she chewed. They must have sent someone after him if they released the news about him. It did not look like Henry had any plan of answering her. But he spoke when he noticed Neo staring at him curiously. I asked them for proof and told them to stop if they had no proper justification. Henry added. They refused, of course. So I told them I'd nuke their country if they don't stop. Ah. I forget that. They don't have mom's protection anymore. Mermaid Country is now easy to threaten. Now. Henry clicked that tongue. I don't fear that bitch. Rather, I wanted to kill her myself. Do you know how much money I lost because of her? Amelia was ticked off by the repeated insults. She didn't stop even after seeing Neo's signal. Isn't that too much to say? I don't like how you. Bitch, stop talking. Don't think you are safe. Depending on Neo's answer, I might kill you right here, right now. She closed her mouth abruptly. The previous favorable impression of Henry was overturned in her mind. Henry ignored her glare and turned to Neo. Since you finished eating, tell me. What happened? I awakened my god blood, Neo answered. My skill could save the queen, and I approached Amelia. He hid the existence of divine water pond. If Henry knew about it, he might ask Neo what he did with it. That would definitely lead to Elizabeth and Henry's meeting. Neo felt a shiver crawl up his spine. He had to stop these two crazy bastards from meeting each other. They were enemies and they would definitely fight over the divine water pond. What's your skill? Henry asked. What is it, fucker? Don't you dare say you forgot. I haven't forgiven you for registering into Demigod Academy. I'm immortal. Henry blinked. It took him a moment to understand Neo's words. You tried to transfer that bitch's curse to yourself. Henry smashed his fist into the table and glared at Neo. Amelia didn't feel afraid, but Neo did. Because he knew Henry's hidden identity. You fucking bitch. What would have happened if you died? Did you forget our promise to Mom and Dad? Henry grabbed Neo's collar. Tell me. Why did you put your life on the line? If you don't have a good reason, I'll kill you myself. Suddenly, Henry frowned. He turned to Amelia. Was it this bitch? Or did her cunt mother blackmail you? Henry pointed his finger towards Amelia. Recognizing the motion, Neo realized to his horror that Henry was about to kill Amelia. He didn't care if it meant revealing his powers. Wait a second. She is pregnant with my child. Neo spoke the first words that came to his mind. Huh? What? Amelia let out a confused voice and Henry seemed baffled. Neo didn't care what he was saying and continued. After I failed to save the queen, Amelia and I were depressed. We weren't in our right mind and things happened between us. Nothing happened. Don't lie to him. Amelia became livid. Her face was beet red. However, her embarrassment only supported Neo's words. Is that true? Henry asked. Yes. No, it isn't. Listen to me. Why are you believing him without any proof? Amelia wanted to cry but had no tear. She didn't understand why Neo was doing this to her. As she tried to stand, Henry pushed down on her shoulders. Sit. It's not good for the child if your blood pressure becomes too high. I'm telling you I'm not pregnant. It's okay, I understand. Even if it was a mistake, it is my duty as an adult to stand by you too and guide you. You don't understand anything. Amelia? Neo approached her. What? Neo looked at her with his usual serious expression. She became flustered when he stared at her intensely. We don't need to hide it from our brother. I trust him. Stop lying, please. Watching Amelia's vehement protest, Henry became doubtful. Neo noticed that and used the secret trick up his sleeve. He activated Ocean's Embrace spell. His body was covered in faint blue light. This is the tremor rank spell the queen passed on to me. You should know. Only 2 people can inherit that spell. So, it's really true. Henry clicked his tongue. Isn't she an academy student? Is it safe for her to attend such a dangerous place in her condition? Henry asked. We have no other choice. If the news about our child spreads, others will know I, as her fiancé, must have inherited the tremor rank spell. It would cause trouble since I'm not strong like her mother to protect the spell, Neo explained. Chapter 29, Templar Course. That sounds reasonable. At the side, Amelia was grinding her teeth in complete fury. She stared at Neo as if she was going to kill him. Neo ignored the chill on his back and asked Henry. Can we leave for the academy? I need to reach there by tomorrow to receive my rank. Henry puckered his lips. Thanks for reminding me, fucker. Care to explain what came over you to register into the most difficult course of the Demigod Academy? Neo Hargraves was in the Templar course. After completing 2 years of academy, he would become a junior Templar. Templars were the official knights of a temple. Among the billions of people living on the continent, only 100 people received a junior Templar certificate every year. The recognition, money, and power a Templar wielded was unimaginable. The top 25 Templar of every year could attend the college and try their hand on Senior Templar course. If they passed, they could challenge a Senior Templar. Needless to say, each Senior Templar was an absolute monster. It was rare for a Senior Templar to lose their position to a Junior Templar. The current 81 Senior Templars had been there for 100 years. You'll rest today. The rank registration won't start until tomorrow. Henry did not leave room for negotiations. After booking 2 rooms near Academy, Neo decided to crash for the night at 5 p.m. You want to sleep now? Henry asked. Yes, I'm tired from last few days. The reason was simple. Immortal had 3 charges right now. Another charge would appear at midnight, but it would be wasted since the skill was at max stack. If he slept at 6 p.m. and spent 6 hours of real time in Underworld, he would regain the charge he lost as soon as he woke up at 12 a.m. He needed Immortal at max stack for the Academy's ranking battle that would happen tomorrow. Because 20% of the students died during it. Henry gave him a dubious look and allowed him to sleep early. For some reason, he sent Amelia with him. Amelia shut the door with a slam and sat at the king-sized bed. Why did you lie like that? She asked in a calm tone. You don't look angry, Neo noticed. I thought you would attack me as soon as we were alone. Sigh, there must be a reason why you did what you did. We may have spent only a bit of time together, but I know you aren't someone who acts impulsively. For someone who seemed relaxed, she sure was glaring hard at him a few minutes back. Amelia always tried to act prim and proper in front of others. And yet, she was somehow always shouting at him. Am I such an asshole that she can't bear my actions? He thought. He curbed the thoughts and answered her. My brother must have thought you kidnapped me. It wouldn't matter even I tried to convince him otherwise. If I didn't lie back then, he would have killed you by now. Why would he kill someone without any justification? Amelia stopped speaking. She covered her face. My mom would. If she thought someone kidnapped me, she would end the kidnappers' lives even if they had genuine reasons. Was his brother the same? Amelia looked at Neo sympathetically. She could relate to him. Despite that, she thought Henry was a good brother. Henry, after confirming Neo's safety, did not try to pry into Neo's secrets. He never asked Neo about his bloodline or tried to force him into answering the questions he was clearly evading. After answering her, Neo prepared to kill himself. Sleep. Are you really going to sleep now? She asked. I have a weak constitution. I need plenty of rest before tomorrow's competition. He lied on the bed and stared at her. What? She questioned. Aren't you going to leave? Don't tell you want to sleep together? Wah minus. Amelia took a large breath and calmed herself down. We have to sleep together if you don't want your brother to find about your lie. Fair enough, Neo yawned. Just don't touch me while I'm asleep like you did last time. I told you it was a misunderstanding. Neo used the death skill to kill himself painlessly. I wonder what kind of training Barbados prepared for me. He tried to be open-minded to accept all kind of surprises. Nevertheless, the Spartan training managed to knock the living daylights out of him. Top floor, Dover Hotel. Henry took a puff of smoke. He stood next to the window, his eyes were glued to the sunset. An old man in butler uniform entered the room. Master, is it true young master made the Mermaid Queen's daughter pregnant? What do you think? He took another puff. Young master was lying. He has a habit of trying to smile whenever he lies. A chuckle left Henry's lips. That fucker really thought he tricked us. Fucking dickhead, he is 100 years too early to lie to me. Master, if I may be so presumptuous to ask, why did you let young master get away with the lie? You never liked when he lied to you in the past. Why huh? Henry rubbed the cigarette in the ashtray and took out a new one from the pack. Because of his eyes when he tried to protect that girl. Neo was a coward. After the day their parents died, Neo became a recluse who would shiver uncontrollably just at the thought of meeting other people. He was pathetic. When Henry found out Neo registered for Templar course and passed the written exams, he thought it was an impulse. Neo just wanted to lash out because Henry treated him like a kid. Henry believed it was a good chance to let Neo meet more people, so he did not stop Neo from trying to enter the Demigod Academy. But, to Henry's horror, Neo suddenly disappeared. The news of Neo's appearance at Mermaid Country brought him relief and worry. Chapter 30, Order and Chaos. At one point, Henry, unable to find Neo, almost went berserk. If he had found Neo a day later, he did not know what he would have done. Neo has changed, Henry said. When he met him today, he was no longer shaking in his boots. He looked at Henry in the eyes when Henry cursed at him. His movements and tone was filled with undeniable confidence. Neo had, somehow, grown. How did it happen? What did he go through in a few days to mature so suddenly? Young master, is he possessed by an outer god? The butler questioned. It is the only way I can explain his change. Possessed, huh? Henry felt a throbbing pain on his scar. He took out another cigarette and took a puff. The pain lessened. I didn't sense the presence of an outer god on him and he took a drag. His habits are the same. That wouldn't be possible if he is a different person. The person was Neo. And he was maturing. I guess it's time for the chick to leave the nest. Henry smiled. He was happy his brother was changing. Honestly, he didn't want Neo to enter the Demigod Academy as it was dangerous. But in their world, weakness was a sin. Henry wouldn't be always there to protect Neo. He turned to the butler. What about the documents? I asked. I've brought them. Henry took the pile of papers from the butler. He flipped through them and clicked his tongue. That bitch left a protector for her daughter. After the Tyrant Queen's death, there were countless demigods who wanted to snatch the terror rank spell from Amelia. However, almost any organization who tried to make a move was suddenly destroyed. It was an open warning. The Tyrant Queen might be dead. But her daughter was not defenseless. Master is the protector. Yeah, it's that bitch herself. She isn't dead. After knowing Neo's skill, Henry was sure his brother saved the queen and inherited her spell as compensation. At least that dickhead has good business senses. He earned a giant profit and removed a roadblock for me. Henry added. Create a fake identity for the bitch. His words confused the butler. Why? Are you trying to help the Tyrant Queen, Master? I'm helping my brother. Henry inhaled the cigarette. That bitch owes a favor to him. It's better for us if she isn't caught. Besides, no one would think I helped her. We aren't in any danger. After discussing the important matters, the butler was about to leave when suddenly Henry called out to him. Did you prepare the thing I asked for Neo's ranking competition? Yes, the butler bowed. It will be completed by tomorrow morning. Underworld. Neo opened his eyes. He saw a foot coming down to stomp his head. Swiftly rolling away, he jumped to his feet. What? 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 20. Countless gullwalks rushed at him. There was no time to get straight in his thoughts or ask Barbados about the training's content. He had to fight as soon as he arrived. A gullwalk slashed the dagger at his head. Neo twisted his head with minimal movements. He shattered the gullwalk's neck with necrotic touch and snatched the dagger from it. Just as he was about to fight, the gullwalk, despite missing its head, grabbed his leg and clawed his feet. Before Neo could stomp the gullwalk, another tried to pounce on his back. He forcefully freed his right feet and, by spinning on his other feet, smashed the right foot in the gullwalk's face. Without stopping, he used the momentum to drop a hammer kick on the gullwalk, clawing his left foot. An arrow stabbed into his back. They have archers? Neo bit his lips. He tried to scan his surroundings when another swift spear stabbed towards his head. These damned bastards. They are aiming for my head. He barely managed to twist his neck in time, and lost his left ear and a portion of his face in exchange for his life. All the while Neo dodged the attack, he did not move away. Instead he closed the gap and plunged the dagger into the spear-wielding gullwalk's lower jaw. These fucks. He dodged another arrow. Before the spear-wielding gullwalk died, Neo took away his spear. He spun on his feet and threw the weapon like a javelin. The attack pierced through 3 gullwalks and nailed the bow-wielding gullwalk to the ground. Got you. A war hammer struck his head. Neo's vision spun. His ears rang loudly and he stumbled. What happened? Blood poured out of his nose and eyes. He couldn't think straight. The Gulwalk smashed the warhammer into Neo's stomach and threw him into the sand. The attack, followed with pain, brought clarity to Neo's mind. He rolled away before the warhammer turned his chest into a paste. But he couldn't dodge the attack completely. His fingers were crushed. Damn it, what's up with these guys today? Neo used necrotic touch to cauterize the wounds. The fingers wouldn't be regenerated, his eyes watered, but he held on. It was the only way he could continue fighting. He broke the warhammer-wielding Gulwalk's knee with a kick and took a glimpse on the timer. Time remaining 11 hours, 58 minutes. What? Only 2 minutes passed. Finally, the Ocean's Embrace spell activated. His body was covered in a thin blue film. Suddenly, an arrow struck his nape. The attack bounced harmlessly off his skin and Neo felt a stinging pain. He was huffing badly. What was happening today? Gulwalks were fierce, but they fought systematically. The battles with them were similar to turn-based combat normally. They would attack, Neo would dodge, Neo would attack and, if they didn't die, they would attack again. But today, they fought like madhounds. All of them rushed at him and attacked without caring about friendly fire or self-harm. The worst part was they were cooperating. When Neo eliminated 2 Gulwalks, it turned out they were baits for the 3rd Gulwalk to use. They were fighting chaotically, but somehow there was order in their chaos. I'll die at this rate. Even if I don't, I'll tire myself out. Neo needed to change location. Preferably to a place where he wasn't open to attacks from all sides like he was now. Chapter 31, Capture the Flag, Hell Edition. Neo scanned the surroundings. There were 3 locations he could go to. The beach, the sea, and the mist. He was already on the beach. The sea. As soon as he thought about escaping into the sea, his body shuddered uncontrollably. Don't go there, his senses screamed at him. The mist is the only way, he thought and dashed to inland where the mist was. Just when he was about to enter the mist, his death affinity warned him. He crouched instantly. Something flew over him. And the Gulwalks behind him were cleaved in half. All of them. Dead. The thing had flew over. It was an attack. He looked at the mist. What's in there? Neo knew he shouldn't go into the mist, but more Gulwalks were crawling out of the beach. If he remained there, the previous situation would repeat. Staying in the beach was useless. Seems that you've warmed up, oh great child of Monarch, the Grim Reaper's voice came out of thin air. Is this your doing? Do you mean the Gulwalks becoming frenzied? It was done by you, not by us. What do you mean? When Barbados spoke, the Gulwalks stopped moving. Neo used the opportunity to take a breather. He asked questions to keep Barbados talking. Your blood is a nectar. The Gulwalks, after smelling it last time, became like this. Neo felt incredulous. It seemed, from the next time, he had to make sure he didn't spill too much blood, or else, the monsters would gain a berserk boost. He really wanted to cry. Since you've warmed up, we will reveal the content of the training. 5 flags appeared before Neo. In the land beyond the mist, we've prepared 5 flag bases. You have to insert the flags into them. Neo grabbed the flags. The training sounded simple. But it was of nightmare difficulty. Neo could barely survive the monsters on the beach. He almost died when he tried to enter the mist. The Grim Reaper wanted him to go into the land beyond the mist? Why doesn't he tell me to die? Oh, I'm already dead. Watching Neo's serious expression, the Grim Reaper added. We know, the training does seem simple. So, to increase the difficulty we've decided to do this. Neo heard a snap. He suddenly felt the pressure of Underworld increase by 1,000-fold. He couldn't breathe. His eyes watered and he felt he was under twice the gravity. The death affinity, which always warned him of the incoming dangerous, went out of control. It started to claw at his throat. He tried to breathe but, like a fish out of water, he could barely do anything. We have sealed your blessing of the Underworld. With this, you will feel as if you are in your body in the living world. The increased difficulty will increase the training's effectiveness. Neo's divine energy was reduced to a quarter and he became nauseous. It wasn't training anymore. He would die if he faced an opponent in this condition. Without the blessing, he was as weak as his real self in the world of living. Neo was on his knees, desperately trying to stabilize his breathing. He felt like an asthma patient. The Grim Reaper continued talking. "We know what you might be thinking, but this is a training, not a punishment." Neo heard another snap. Information appeared inside his head. It wasn't a spell. This should help you survive and grow stronger if you use it wisely. We hope you succeed, O great child of Monarch. Barbados' presence disappeared. The Gullwalks began to move. They rushed at Neo, who was writhing on the ground, like a tsunami. Damn it. The Grim Reaper gave him an incredibly precious gift. It was something more useful and powerful than the tremor-ranked spell. However, Neo was in no position to make use of it right now. He activated the Ocean's Embrace clumsily and struck an uppercut. The attack pushed back the Gullwalk, but not before another Gullwalk bit his shoulder. There was no serious injury. The Ocean's Embrace saved him. He could, however, feel the Gullwalk's teeth slightly sinking into his skin. Neo's mastery over the spell was not enough to make him impervious to attacks. He bashed the Gullwalk's head against his fist and killed it. Dozens of Gullwalks pounced on Neo. He used the dead Gullwalk as a battering ram and broke through the encirclement. The number of Gullwalks was only increasing. Neo had no other choice but to escape from the beach. He held the dead Gullwalk before him and ran into the mist. His body movements were not perfect after he lost the blessing. Neo couldn't dodge when he sensed an incoming attack. He raised the Gullwalk's corpse and placed all of his chips into his spell. A blade of invisible air split the corpse before it hit Neo in the chest. The Ocean's Embrace deactivated. He was left with a bleeding gash on his torso. But, cough, cough. He was alive. His senses suddenly flared. Another attack was coming. Without thinking straight, Neo dashed towards the place that gave off the scent of danger and punched. His attack connected. The sound of the glass shattering rang and the enemy's invisibility disappeared. A large mantis with the lower half of snake stood before him. Neo was holding on its tail. The mantis made a shrill cry. It launched an invisible blade from its scythe. Neo instinctively used the mantis tail as a cover. The attack couldn't cut its body and left a huge gash. While the mantis went berserk from pain, Neo dashed and grabbed its head with necrotic touch. Its skin started to rot. The monster tried to get Neo off its head. It thrashed around, but Neo protected himself from being squashed with Ocean's Embrace. How much time passed? Neo, after applying 5 stacks, diverted his full focus towards maintaining Ocean's Embrace. Maybe because the mantis was a creature of Underworld, the spell, powered by death affinity, took time to kill it. Finally, the monster stopped moving. Neo lay over its corpse as black pus flowed out its rotting head. I feel like shit. Neo raised his head. He didn't know where he was. The mist hindered the visibility. It was hard to see anything more than a few meters away. We must have come a long way from the beach. I can't hear those Gullwalks. As he focused on his hearing, he suddenly heard an unfamiliar voice. Chapter 32, Land Beyond the Mist. Neo heard the splashing of water. It's a river. He got down from the corpse and gulped. His body was covered in blood. Back in the beach, the Gullwalks became frenzied due to his blood. If he didn't wash himself, he did not know what he might attract. Just thinking of facing multiple mantis monsters was enough to make him search for the river. He moved through the mist. His body was crying in pain. The healing seemed to have disappeared with the blessing. This damned body. Using 5 stacks of necrotic touch and Ocean's Embrace left him with less than half of his divine energy. He would regain the divine energy slowly in normal situations. But it wasn't possible anymore. Because he hadn't eaten anything. Divine energy came from the god blood flowing in a demigod's veins. It replenished by consuming food. Breathing divine energy-rich air might help, but it would still take a long time. Neo noticed the mist thinning. He hurried his steps and came out of the white fog. The forest was full of large, ancient trees with thick vines falling from their high branches. Clouds floated in the sky. Only then did Neo realize he had no problem with his vision even though Underworld was under a perpetual night. The forest was silent save for the noise of the river. He reached the bank with a heavy breath. The river, full of blood-red water, looked ominous to say the least. Neo slowly lowered his hand and dipped it. Nothing happened. The water was not harmful to skin at least. He removed his clothes and washed himself. After rubbing himself thoroughly, he tore his jacket and tied it around the wound on his chest and the shoulder. It stung. He stared at the reflection in the water. His cheek healed and the bleeding stopped before he lost the blessing. But his right ear never regenerated. The tips of 3 fingers of his left hand were crushed. He could hold a weapon but his grip was weak. His shoulder had bite marks. He was wondering if it might get infected as he had no medications. His chest's injury, a gash from the top left shoulder to the right waist, was the lightest wound. It looked vicious, but it barely hurt. It would have better it have been if I used the ocean's embrace from the beginning. His low mastery of the spell was the reason it took him long to activate the spell. At least, it didn't fail like his first time with necrotic touch. After getting out of the river, he sat under a nearby tree. He focused inwards and checked the information Barbados left him. It was knowledge of how to use darkness element. Underworld was where dark-type elements were present in high concentration. After spending a long time in Underworld, the souls get tainted by these elements. The darkness element had the property to devour. Darkness was a color that took the colors from others and painted them into its color. Similarly, those tainted by darkness, or with an affinity for it, could absorb other souls' body into themselves. Depending on the mastery and luck, they could gain stats, skills and more from the consumed objects. It was why the number of souls in Underworld did not overflow. They consumed each other and kept growing stronger for eons. Neo had to do the same. If wanted to survive Barbados training, he needed to devour his enemies. His emotions were calm, but his mind told him it was wrong. Until a few weeks ago, he was a normal person. He shouldn't accept something like this so easily. But another part of his mind rationalized his thoughts. Anyone who spends too much time in Underworld is consumed by insanity. The monsters were no longer their previous self. They were now just monsters. The mantis he fought. Suddenly, tremors appeared. They increased in intensity. The silent forest shook loudly. Do earthquakes exist in Underworld? Neo could not complete his words. They were stuck in his throat. He felt it. The source of tremor was moving towards him. And his senses were crying. His death affinity warned him. The thing approaching him was strong. As strong as Elizabeth, if not stronger. An exalted demigod. The tremor stopped and a huge shadow that seemed to cover the sky fell over Neo. He didn't move, he didn't breathe, and he didn't run. He did his best to hide by trying to melt into the surroundings. The strongest beings in the world of livings. They were exalted demigod. There was no way he could do anything against someone who was as strong as exalted demigod. Neo did not raise his head. He waited. Time passed. 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. A huge hand came down from the sky and gouged out the river. Silence returned. Neo, fearful, raised his head. He couldn't believe what he saw. A humongous humanoid being, someone so giant his torso pierced the clouds, was the source of his death affinity's warnings. The being drank the river it scooped into its palm. My blood. Is it trying to drink the blood I washed into the river? Neo recalled Barbados' words. His blood was a nectar. It called out an exalted demigod to his location. The giant finished drinking. It didn't leave and stood there. Is it searching for me? Neo could feel his heart thumping crazily. His death affinity was warning him. Suddenly, everything went silent. The warnings disappeared. Tremors appeared. The giant covered an unimaginable distance with each step and left. Neo lost strength in his legs. He fell. He was breathing heavily. Damn. That was scary. He stood up when the gouged-out land began to refill with the help of the flowing river. I'll consume the mantis corpse. The encounter with the giant straightened his thoughts. In Underworld, his morals would not protect him. He couldn't hesitate. Getting stronger was the bare minimum if he wanted to survive. Chapter 33, Gremlins. To use darkness, or to not use it? The dilemma was a luxury a grade 5 awakened demigod like him could not afford. Besides, it wasn't like he was devouring a human soul. After making a decision, he moved towards the mist. He had barely recovered any divine energy and he was steadily growing tired. Consuming the mantis should help him recover. Yes, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just trying to survive. The location of the mantis corpse was not far into the mist. Despite the lack of visibility, Neo could reach the location fairly easily by referring to his memory. And fuck. Of course, it's like this. The corpse was missing. He crouched and touched the soil. The ground had marks as if the mantis was dragged away. There were multiple footprints along the path. Should I follow the traces? The mantis had weak defense but it was fairly strong. I should get a quite few stats if I absorb it. Neo's mind raced. Multiple monsters were needed to drag the corpse. They are physically weak. They didn't hunt the monster and instead stole the corpse. They are thieves, not hunters. The fact they live in groups means the individual members of their species have low combat power. They use numbers to protect themselves. All of deduction pointed out to a single conclusion. The monsters were at the bottom of food chain. They were a species that lived on scraps of others. But a group also signify they have basic intelligence. They might be able to make use or weapons and traps. Moreover, I don't know their numbers. Without the blessing of Underworld, I can't heal anymore. Fighting recklessly like I usually do is out of the question. It was dangerous. Moreover, his goal was to search for flag posts. But he wouldn't find them by searching for them blindly. He might encounter a strong monster during the exploration. These monsters, seemingly at the bottom of food chain, were the best choice for Neo to hunt. He made the decision and followed the tracks left by whoever stole the mantis corpse. The tracks took him out of the mist. He navigated through the forest and soon heard unintelligible noises. They were coming from behind and left sides. One group went ahead and two more are nearby. How many of them are there? Neo quickly looked for a method to hide. The noises were slowly nearing. He suddenly saw the vines hanging from the trees. There was no other place to hide. Return to monkey it is. The vines were easy to hold and climb with. However, Neo, after losing the blessing, became tired easily. He had climbed only half of the way when the monsters appeared. Crude purple skin, short stature, and hideously ugly. Most of them were empty-handed while a few carried a wooden club. Gremlins. Neo recognized them. He climbed the vines while the monsters focused on the path and stood on the thick tree branches. I should use the tree branches to tail them. With their short stature, they would find it difficult to climb, and if Neo was caught he would have enough time to run away. As he followed the gremlins, he realized something horrible. There were too many of them. He came across 5 groups and their numbers only increased as they went in the direction where their base might be. They approached area with sparse trees. Neo was forced to a stop and he tried to scout the gremlins' base from the distance. A few hundreds at least. They lived in ragtag huts and had created a crude wooden wall to surround the tribe's border. Judging from the infrastructure, they were either nomadic or poorly skilled. There was a burned bonfire in the center of the tribe. The corpse of Mantis was there. The gremlins seemed to be laughing and dancing as they tore a piece of the corpse and ate. Neo suddenly noticed a woman next to the corpse. Tears and snot covered her face. He couldn't hear her and tried to read her lips. Help me. Someone. Soft. Me. She was missing her right leg. The gremlins tore her body apart and ate her along with the mantis corpse. He bit his lips. There was nothing he could do. She was already dead and he was too weak to help. Fighting a group of gremlins, let alone hundreds in his current condition, was suicide. Still, he didn't avert his eyes. It was weird. How could he stay calm in the current situation? He was in Underworld where he could be killed any time, yet he never felt afraid. I feel numbed. Barbados warned me I'll become tainted if I touch death too many times. Neo felt it was a good change. He calmly analyzed the situation. The woman must be a wandering soul. Either a Grim Reaper didn't come to pick her up, or she ran away. She ran away and became food for monsters. It was how things worked in Underworld. There was no happy ending for the weak. Power was the only solution. Not just Underworld, it's the same in the world of living. If I don't become strong, I'll never survive the calamities. Suddenly, Neo felt the flags inside his clothes vibrate. He took one of them out. The flag, as if it came to life, whirred and pointed at the burned bonfire in the middle of the gremlin camp. A beat later, it returned to its lifeless self. Neo looked at the flag in his hand and at the bonfire. Is it telling me the flag post is there? Barbados was really trying to get him killed. Neo really wanted to cry. He took a short breath and calmed himself. It was not the time to mop around. If anything, he should be happy he found the flag post quickly. But how can I go in there and use the flag post? Gremlins were not friendly to humans. The woman showed him why. A small group might be doable, but fighting hundreds is not an option. He stared at partying gremlins while they enjoyed the feast. Partying. Oh. An idea popped into Neo's head. This might work. Chapter 34, Darkness. Devour. Gremlins were social monsters. They hunted when they were hungry, they stole when they found a target, they laughed when they feasted, they moved in groups to use the advantage of numbers, they used clubs as weapons. They had emotions. Not just joy, patience, and ambition. Sadness, rage, fear. They probably had those too. His plan was simple and it targeted those emotions. There was just one problem. It was a heinous plan no sane person would use. But when he remembered how they ate the woman while laughing, Neo felt no remorse. They were monsters. And he was going to treat them like one. Neo moved away from the camp. He searched for a solitary group of gremlins with no more than 3 monsters. Maybe it was because there was no predator in trees, and because the thick tree branches did not make noise when Neo moved on them, the gremlins never checked if there was someone above them. Neo climbed down halfway through the vine and angled himself above a gremlin. They were a group of 5. He used Ocean's Embrace before he let go of the vine. The first gremlin was crushed to death as he fell on top of it. A shiver ran down his legs, but the impact was non-lethal, maybe thanks to the spell or his demigod physique. He grabbed the heads of the nearest gremlins before they could react and smashed them together. Their heads popped like balloons. Suddenly, Neo felt a stinging pain on the back of his leg. He turned around. A gremlin was stabbing him with a crude knife. The last gremlin pounced on him with a roar just as he was about to kill the knife-wielding gremlin. Neo allowed the gremlin to bite his left hand. These little critters weren't as strong as Gulwalks and couldn't pierce his Ocean's Embrace. Neo flexed his arm and hit the gremlin on his arm against the knife-wielding gremlin. They let go of him in pain and were swiftly killed by getting their necks snapped. He fell to the ground as soon as the battle ended. Huff. Huff. My stamina is the real problem here. The scene around him with the heads bashed open was straight out of a gore movie. He looked at his blood-covered hands with a sigh. I spilled too much blood. It will attract other monsters. These corpses aren't usable for my plan. Although it wasn't his original intention, he decided to devour them. He suddenly stopped. His ears turned red. Do I really need to do hand signs to use the element? After reviewing the information, he found out that using hand signs or words could alter the flow of divine energy through his magic circuits. It was a must for an amateur like him. Fuck, I need to use them? Neo gave up. He curved his fingers inward while his thumb and middle fingers touched in a precise gesture. Devour. Divine energy rushed into his core. Inside, it transformed into something heavier and burst out. His shadow shook. It suddenly stretched in all directions and turned the ground below him pitch black. The corpses slowly sunk into the darkness. Neo maintained the hand signs and focused on absorbing the gremlins. Countless voices appeared inside his head. Womanahar dinani to emi fatishe sended wo em the third for second one will thizend yeri kuming the outer stegid ser dedi dediet. The voices of darkness made no sense to Neo. A trail of blood flowed down from his nose. He did his best to ignore the voices, lest he let the insanity take over his mind. After a few minutes, the corpses were completely absorbed. Neo let go of the hand signs and the darkness returned to his shadow. He breathed heavily while wiping the blood from his nose. His complexion was better. He felt rejuvenated and his stamina was restored by a bit. Constitution +2. 2 stats points. It's a jackpot right off the bat. The corner of his lips rose into a smile. Using darkness brought immense mental fatigue, but, right now, his biggest problem was his stamina, and it was somewhat solved with darkness element. He took the knife that had fallen to the ground. There was no blood or corpse remaining. If someone came there, they wouldn't believe the place had been filled with smashed open heads, cranium, and blood a few minutes ago. I should be able to stop them from bleeding with the knife and necrotic touch. He climbed the trees and looked for another group. This one had 3 gremlins. He dropped next to the first gremlin and slit its throat. The others tried to run, but he threw the knife and caught one of them while the other tripped, which allowed Neo to finish them with necrotic touch. After the battle ended, he tied them with vines and hung them on the trees. I need to repeat this quite a few more times. It's going to be tiring. The corpses dangled in the air. They were low enough for the gremlins to see, but still high to the point they couldn't get them off until they climbed. If Neo repeated the hangings, it was bound to affect gremlins. They had emotions. Fear. Or rage. He wondered what they, who could eat other species alive, would feel. Dover Hotel, World of Living. Amelia stared at the ceiling with a tired gaze. She rolled in the bed again. No matter how much she tried, she couldn't sleep. Turning around, she stared at Neo. Hey, are you asleep? He was sleeping like a log. She raised her head and stared at him with a frown. Honestly, she didn't want to think this way, but she was suspicious of Neo. In terms of appearance, Amelia was cut above the rest. She was as the same age as Neo, and they were sleeping next to each other. How could a boy in his prime sleep soundly next to her? He might swing that way. Amelia blinked. Her face brightened. She became surer of her thoughts. Her mother's advances were bound to fail. Chapter 35, Attacking the Gremlin Camp. Dover Hotel, World of Living. Amelia stared at the ceiling with a tired gaze. She rolled in the bed again. No matter how much she tried, she couldn't sleep. Turning around, she stared at Neo. Hey, are you asleep? He was sleeping like a log. She raised her head and stared at him with a frown. Honestly, she didn't want to think this way, but she was suspicious of Neo. In terms of appearance, Amelia was cut above the rest. She was as the same age as Neo, and they were sleeping next to each other. How could a boy in his prime youth sleep soundly next to her like him? He might swing that way. Amelia blinked. Her face brightened. She became surer of her thoughts. Her mother's advances were bound to fail. The thoughts she harbored against Neo dissipated. She did not need to take precautions anymore. Looking again, Neo's sleeping face seemed a bit cute. She gently touched his cheek with her finger and giggled. He was sleeping so soundly that he didn't wake up when she pinched his cheeks. His posture remained the same. Not even his chest moved. Almost as if he was dead. Amelia suddenly froze. As if he was dead? No. That's not possible. She pressed her palm against his chest swiftly and there is no heartbeat. Neo did not have a pulse either. He was not sleeping. He was dead. Amelia's face hardened. But she regained her calm quickly. Neo was immortal. He had proven it. Why did he die suddenly? He should be still alive. Was it an assassination or was it the price of cheating death? She didn't complete her words, fearing they might come true. Nobody could die and return to the world of living without paying a price. Neo never said what he had sacrificed. What if his current condition was the consequence of it? She recalled his heavy aura of death. It was something only those who visited Underworld could have. Did he have to keep visiting that horrible place as a price of his powers? It was an open secret. Exalted demigods wanted to find methods of immortality. They knew about the underworld more than anyone else, and they were afraid of dying and going there. Amelia bit her lips. Twice. Neo died twice to help her mother and her. Twice, he must have gone to the underworld, and still, he never told them about it. Is he trying to make sure we don't feel guilty? What kind of nightmares had he seen in that world? What would he do if he could not return again? Amelia did not know how Neo could remain sane. How much courage was needed to visit the world feared by the so-called the strongest demigods? There was nothing Amelia could do. She could only pray he would not lose his way. That no matter the horror he faced, he would stand strong. Even if he was alone. Even if he had no one to support him. Please, stay safe. Forest of all beginnings. Land beyond the mist, underworld. I'm finally done. Neo looked at the work that took him hours to complete. Dozens of gremlins were hanged on the trees. It looked like the work of a psychopath. He pursed his lips. Maybe I went too far. Shaking his head, he climbed a vine and waited for another group of gremlins. The monsters arrived. They froze when they saw the dangling corpses. One of the gremlins shouted. It tried to jump and pull down the corpses. Neo remained hidden. He noticed the gremlins growing frantic from rage or shock before they ran back to their camp. They gathered around the burned bonfire. It did not take long for hundreds of gremlins to join them. They shouted and made incomprehensible noise for minutes. A small group of 15, approximately 20 gremlins left into the direction of hanged corpses. They are checking if it's true that gremlins are hanged, huh? The group returned after a few minutes. They were livid. Their screeches confirmed the death of their fellow gremlins. The crowd of gremlins was about to leave and search for the perpetrator when suddenly another group of gremlin returned while shouting and roaring. They found the other sides. Neo had hung the corpses at multiple places. Since every group of gremlin went in different directions, he was able to hang them without getting caught. Hundreds of monsters rushed out of the camp. They took out weapons and swept through the forest. The gremlins looked at the tree branches to see if the killer was hiding there. Unfortunately for them, Neo was in the trees next to the base. Since the corpses were far from the camp, the monster never thought he would hide there. Now, I can start. The base had only a handful of gremlin left. Neo's action pissed them badly. He carefully moved on the trees above the base. These trees had thin branches. If was not cautious, the noise would alert the gremlins or the branches might snap. He failed to notice thin threads covering the area. The threads snapped when he moved through them. Bells hidden on the trees rang. Neo's position was revealed. Shit. The gremlins, while not wary towards the enemy on trees, made sure to protect the area above their camp. Neo's mind raced. Should he run away or should he try to complete the task? There was not much time left until the gremlins returned after hearing the bells. But if he was fast, he might be able to escape. I should. The branch snapped when a gremlin suddenly hit it with a stone. Neo barely had time to use Ocean's Embrace before his body hit the ground. He groaned. I think I broke something. As if it wasn't bad enough, he heard the noise of horns. The gremlins began to surround him. Chapter 36, this too is a part of your training. Fuck, if I'm here, might as well complete the task. Neo rushed towards the burned bonfire. The gremlins in his path were pushed away. Their attacks did nothing against Ocean's Embrace. He kicked the bonfire and a flag post was revealed. Thank God, it's actually here. If it wasn't, he might have really cried. He pushed the flag into its place. Nothing happened. It's done, right? Don't tell me I have to make sure the flag isn't pulled out. Neo's senses flared. An attack from behind. He raised his arm. A sword sliced through the Ocean's Embrace and cut halfway into his arm. When the blade stopped in the place, Neo smashed the elbow of his other hand into the gremlin who stood behind him. The gremlin moved its head to dodge the attack. It pulled back the sword and kicked Neo in the back. Neo crashed into the heaps of burned bonfire. Before he could move, The gremlin jumped on top of him and stabbed the sword at his heart. An evolved gremlin. It was bigger than others, almost the same size as Neo, and had defined muscles. Neo was not its match in physical contest. Nevertheless, Neo grabbed the blade before it pierced him. Ocean's embrace saved his fingers from being sliced off. The gremlin grunted. It increased the strength and tried to push the blade. Before the spell could be breached again, Neo kicked its shin. The attack threw it off balance and Neo broke its neck with 3 stacks of necrotic touch. Neo could only see gremlins everywhere he turned. They weren't a threat individually, but even an elephant would fall against an ocean of ants. Neo tried to dash out of the encirclement. He didn't think. There was no time to waste. He had to escape before the hundreds of gremlins returned. The gremlins attacked as if they didn't care about their life. They tried to stop him even just for a second. When Neo was confused by their vigor, they suddenly threw ropes around him. These fuckers, they are used to fighting someone stronger than them. Neo grabbed the ropes and pulled with a snap. Unfortunately, multiple evolved held the ends of the ropes. It was the end of the rope for him. Neo could not escape. Desperate, he used necrotic touch to shatter his left hand tied by the rope. The pain sent throes of agony across his mind. But he had no choice. The encirclement was stable because it was being pulled from all sides. When one of the ropes got cut, the encirclement lost its stability. Neo crouched and dashed into the group of nearest gremlins. He used necrotic touch to finish the evolved gremlin that jumped out. His divine energy was about to hit rock bottom. The anemia was making him feel as if he was about to die. A sword stabbed into his back and he realized the ocean's embrace had worn off. He could not maintain it any longer. The gremlins pounced on him. A heavy blow to his head threw him to the ground. He tried to use necrotic touch but failed. At the same time, he felt pain in his legs. His bones were being crushed and his flesh was torn apart. Neo didn't stop fighting. Just a bit more. He released his aura of death. The gremlins, residents of Underworld, were not affected in the least. However, they shrieked when Neo used the darkness element. The groups of monsters feeding on his body backed away. They stood at the border of the darkness stretching below him. Neo struggled to keep his eyes open. He didn't look at his body, afraid of what he might see. All of his energy was diverted towards maintain the darkness domain beneath his feet. The gremlins knew it could devour them. And they understood it was Neo's dying struggle. Just a bit more. Strength slipped from Neo's grasp. The darkness began to shrink. Gremlins pounced on him with a savage grin. And it's done. Time remaining, 00 hours, 00 minutes. Immortal time limit finished. You will be revived forcibly. Neo's eyes snapped open. He woke up on the hotel bed. Underworld. Barbados stared camp of gremlins. The monsters were in disarray after Neo suddenly disappeared. We miscalculated. He had a terror-ranked defensive spell. Barbados lowered his gaze at the broken branch. It was the same branch from which Neo fell and was forced to fight the gremlins. A sigh left Barbados' lips. Forgive us, O great child of Monarch. But this too is a part of your training. No amount of physical strength can help a weak mind. Barbados was the reason why Neo got caught and why the gremlins returned so quickly. He had to make sure Neo lost. Because Neo had to understand defeat. Neo, with the bloodline of Hades, had the potential to dominate the world. But that was all. Potential meant nothing if he could not achieve it. Humans had the potential to run 100 meters in 9.5 seconds if they reached their max potential. How many could actually do it? Only 0.1% of humans at best. If students studied, they had the potential to enter the best universities or colleges. How many actually cracked an exam? Barely a small percentage. Potential was just potential in the end. If Neo lacked the drive to improve, he could never achieve anything substantial. Barbados gave him the push. This defeat. It would either break Neo or it would change him for the better. We hope you will succeed, O great child of Monarch. Dover Hotel. Fuck. Neo covered his face to hide his terrible expression. I lost. Fuck. The plan failed. He almost died. Not almost. He might have survived, but he would die the next time he appeared in the underworld. The location he would arrive in at was where he had left from. So, he would wake up in the gremlin tribe. Besides, would he even heal? His body was badly injured in today's battle. If he reappeared with those wounds, he would die within a minute. Chapter 37, Defeat. I was overconfident. Damn it. Neo's eyes reddened. He didn't feel afraid of death or the pain. However, the crushing defeat left a scar on him. There was not a single thing he could do. He was put down with an overwhelming difference. Fuck. 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 He muttered while hiding his face. Why? Why was he so overconfident? Was it because he defeated the death skill? Or was it because he saved Elizabeth? Maybe, it was because he had support of two of the strongest beings. Shit. He felt like shit. Did he really achieve anything after coming to this world? He thought everything would go his way since he knew the future and had the bloodline of Hades. But when it actually mattered, he couldn't put up a fight at all. Loser. Pathetic. Mediocre. He didn't change after coming to this world. Neo removed his hand and stared at the ceiling. Now what? What should a loser like him do? Return to the underworld? Neo would be killed. He should act like a loser he was and keep hiding in the world of living. With the knowledge of the future, he could protect his life if he lived while keeping his head down. I'm not doing that. Even if his choice would lead to his death. Neo clenched his fists. His nails dug into his palm until they bled. Warning. You've left the quest area. Please return. Warning. If the user does not return to the quest area in 10 days, the quest will be forfeited. Neo stared at the screen. 10 days. He could ignore the quest. At best, he would lose the holy affinity. But how many times would he accept defeat? It's difficult right now, I should retreat, I can try again. If he thought like that once, he would do it again and again in the future. That was how he became a loser in his past world. Neo clenched his fists. 10 days. He would become strong enough to crush the gremlins in 10 days. Even if he had to die for it. He would achieve it. Neo. What happened? Amelia's voice snapped him out of his thoughts. He turned around to hide his face. Nothing, I just woke up. Contrary to the usual, Amelia did not stop talking. Did you have a nightmare? You are shivering. He was trembling. Why? Was it because he was afraid of the pain? His body shivered unconsciously when he thought about the brutal death. Pathetic. Even after dying multiple times, he was afraid of pain. Neo bit his lips. When he didn't answer, Amelia continued. It's okay if you are afraid. Everyone have times when they encounter difficulties. You can tell me. A trickle of blood flowed from Neo's lips. He opened his mouth to speak, to ask for help, but he abruptly stopped. Ask for help? What would that do? He would only become more pathetic. It's just cold, he said as he suppressed the tremors in his voice. I'm sleepy. Don't talk to me anymore. Okay. Amelia continued. But you can always talk to me if you are having a hard time. Neo didn't understand why Amelia was talking the way she was. He didn't want to understand anything right now. His mind was occupied with his own problems. The mental exhaustion from using darkness and everything else he went through in Underworld made it difficult for him to keep his eyes open. He fell asleep. Neo. Amelia raised her upper body from the bed. She leaned closer to his face and noticed the blood flowing out of his lips. Why won't you ask for help? Even if I can't do anything, I can hear you out at least. Revealing a weakness would help him reduce the burden on his heart. But Neo had closed off his heart. He would rather suffer alone than ask for help. Amelia could not do anything but wait for him. She wiped the blood from his lips and covered him with a blanket. Sleep well, she said to Neo. That night, Amelia could not sleep at all. Neo woke up when he heard the knocks on the door. He felt refreshed. Young master, may I come in? Yeah. He noticed the blanket. When did I use this? Yawning, he was about to get off the bed until he noticed Amelia holding his hand in her sleep. Before Neo could open her grip, the butler entered the room. Please get ready, young master. The Lord has called for you. I will get ready soon. While he spoke with a serious expression, he was trying to get Amelia open her hand. Why was this woman's grip so powerful? The butler ignored his actions and he was thankful for it. He would have died from embarrassment otherwise. Yawn, Neo, you are awake? Amelia rubbed her eyes and removed the strand of hair on her face. Half asleep, she looked at her hand which held Neo's hand, looked up at Neo, then back at their hands. Ah! Her face turned beet red as she let go. Good morning, Miss Amelia, the butler greeted her. Gee, good morning. I will be waiting for you two outside. Please get ready. It didn't take long for them to freshen up. They left the room and had breakfast. After filling their stomach, the butler took them to Henry's room. The butler knocked on the door. Master, I've brought young master and Miss Amelia. Come inside. They entered the room. Henry sat across the table and he calmly sipped tea. Sit, he said. Neo and Amelia followed his words. Amelia felt awkward in front of Henry's piercing gaze. Neo, however, did not feel any pressure. He knows I lied yesterday, Neo thought. It was easy to confirm the pregnancy with the methods available in this world. Henry must have used one of them. He was probably letting Amelia live as he didn't want to antagonize Neo, or maybe he had other intentions. Neo wasn't interested in knowing the reason. As long as Amelia was safe until Elizabeth returned, his job was done. Bring it. The butler placed a suitcase on the table at Henry's command. What's this? Neo asked. Your gift for passing the Demigod Academy's exam, Henry said. Chapter 38, God Slayer Series. Your gift for passing the Demigod Academy's exam, Henry said. But. He leaned closer. You need to accept a condition if you want the gift. What condition? Neo asked with furrowed brows. Today is your rank battle competition. You will need to choose a rank and enter a 7-day battle royale to protect your rank. If you survive, you will be awarded with the rank you chose. Henry's words explain the rank competition. Neo knew it already. The competition was the first major arc in the novel where the protagonist and the main cast were introduced. Moreover, the competition was broadcasted live all over the continent. What rank are you planning to choose? Henry asked. Neo didn't answer. Chose any rank below 1,500 and you can have the gift. Just as Neo was about to answer, Henry added. Don't be so quick to reject. Check the gift, maybe you'll accept my offer. His confidence made Neo curious about the gift. He opened the suitcase. How is it? Henry smiled. Neo took out the sword from the suitcase. The hilt had a black cross pattern and the blade was inside the sheath. His senses warned him. The blade was dangerous. He tried to pull out the blade from the scabbard but failed. It confirmed his guess. I can't believe I got my hands on it without doing anything. Its name is Obidus, Henry explained. Neo nodded. Obidus. It was a new prototype weapon made by Hargraves Corporation. It would be known as the first weapon of the God Slayer series in the future. In a world where gods were real, it was easy to guess how powerful a weapon was if it was named as the God Slayer weapon. What is this? Amelia asked uneasily. She could sense that something was not right. Obidus. It felt unnatural. Like something that shouldn't exist. It's our new weapon series. Soul weapons. These weapons grow with their wielders. Grow. Amelia's eyes widened. It was the first time she heard about such weapon. And, what did you mean weapon by our weapon? She asked. Yes, it can grow stronger alongside its user. As for your second question, Obidus is the latest product of our Hargraves Corporation. Hargraves Corporation? She turned to Neo. You are filthy rich. Neo nodded. I'll accept your condition in exchange for the gift, he told Henry. Look at this fucker lying with a straight face. Henry tapped his finger on the armrest. Fuck, take the sword. You will get your ass handed to you if you participate for a high rank without a good weapon. But, bitch, if anything happens to you, I will kill you. Mark my words. You better return safe. Thank you, Neo smiled. Henry clicked his tongue and turned away. That's right. Be thankful, fucker. You have the best brother in the world. Neo took the sword and left for the academy with Amelia and Henry. They noticed the streets filled with people. They are waiting for the live broadcast, Amelia explained. The battle rank competition is one of highlights of Academy. You can say it's an annual festival. Neo nodded. The competition was more famous than Olympics. Moreover, all major battles will be broadcasted for the citizens. Other than the tournament winners, the fan-favorite students might get nice rewards too. It was possible to catch a guild's eye if one performed spectacularly. What rank are you aiming for? Amelia whispered. I'm thinking about it. She didn't seem convinced and advised. Don't choose anything in top 100. Those ranks are reserved for children from Great God and High God clans. The top 10 students every year were member of Zeus clan and Poseidon clan. The rank 11 to rank 100 were a part of High God clans such as Ares clan, Artemis clan, and Apollo clan. Reserved? Neo asked. He knew the answer. It was something only Academy students and member of God clans should know, and he was neither of the two. It's an open secret in the Academy. If any outsider tries to enter top 100 ranks, the students from God clans will crush them. I see, Neo said. Hey, take this seriously. Do you think I'm joking? Even the rank 2000, the last ranked student, will be hailed as a genius outside the Academy. The quality of students improves drastically above rank 1000, and it improves again at rank 500. The top 100s are absolute geniuses. Some of them must have already reached grade 3 awakened rank. And the top 10? Don't even think about them. I was taught by mother and I have a terror rank spell, and I'm only rank 11. Even after 1 year, I can't put a scratch on top 10 students. Your year will be no different. The children of great God clans undergo the same training. Please, don't be reckless. Choose a rank below 1000 for your own safety, Amelia said. While her explanation came to an end, they reached the academy. Neo and Amelia got off after he said goodbye to Henry. Bitch. Henry called out to him when they were about to enter the gates. Go get them, Henry grinned. Neo smiled. He turned around and left. Entering the academy, he had to go towards the first-year section. Goodbye. I'll see you after the tournament, Amelia said as she left. Neo entered a large hall. He could see multiple lines before the desks. A hologram floated in the air. It showed which ranks had been taken. Neo entered a line and waited for his chance. When he reached the desks, the receptionist was slightly surprised seeing his handsome face. She snapped out of daze and explained the content of the tournament. One student can choose only one rank, and you can't take a rank chosen by someone else until the competition starts. Neo looked back at the hologram. The top 100 ranks had yet to be taken. The children of Great God clans and High God clans were present in the hall. They had yet to choose a rank. It was on purpose. They wanted to show no one had the courage to take what rightfully belonged to them. Sir, what rank do you want to opt for? I. Chapter 39, Morrigan de Montaigne. I. Neo was an extra. If he tried to take high rank, he would affect the plot of the novel. But this world was heading for a destined doom. Neo would die if the future was not changed. He wanted to live. He never had any intention of not interfering. Want rank 1? What? The receptionist looked at him as if he was crazy. Sir, maybe you misspoke. She noticed the students glaring at her desk. Her eyes watered at the pressure of the children of God clans. This crazy bastard. He looks good but his head is empty. The receptionist wanted to cry when Neo did not budge. If he wants to die, die alone. Why is he trying to get me killed along with him? Can you give me the rank token? Neo asked. Sir. Is it not allowed? No. That's not the problem. She bit her lips and gave him the rank 1 badge with trembling hands. Any student who wanted to become rank 1 needed to take the badge from him. Neo could hide it inside his clothes, but it must remain on his body at all times. He ignored the stairs and sat on the benches at the back of the hall. The hall was enveloped in murmurs. Some laughed at Neo, some mocked him, and some pitied someone as handsome as him wanted to do a suicide. Neo blinked. Suddenly, the seat next to him became occupied. The girl with black hair that were golden underneath and had golden eyes appeared like a ghost. Neo didn't notice her until she sat on the seat. She held a sheathed sword and sat with crossed arms. Her gaze was fixed at the hologram. "Do you know the consequences of your actions?" She spoke without looking at him. "Maybe, maybe not. Why should I tell you?" Neo wasn't startled. He expected someone to approach him when he chose the rank 1 token. Though, he didn't expect it to be her. "Because that rank belongs to me," she said. "You took what is mine." Her face remained as calm as a lake. "If you don't want to die a dog's death, give up now." "That's quite a threat," Neo said. He noticed other member of Zeus clan slowly circling them. "Will your siblings attack me if I say no?" "They aren't my siblings and I don't need help to take care of someone who can't even control his divine energy." Neo could only smile when she poked where it hurt. His spells were strong because his divine energy purity was grade 1 awakened rank and the spells themselves were terror ranked. He improved drastically after he started training, but he had a long path ahead. Silence descended between the two. They stared at the activities in the hall. "Morgan de Montaigne," she suddenly said. "Neo Hargraves." They stopped talking. Morgan stood up after a few minutes. "Your brother won't be able to protect you every time you act out of the line," she added. "You should have understood your limits after the incident in the Mermaid Country." The members of Zeus clan tried to approach Neo until she told them to let him go. "I will deal with him myself when the tournament starts." She left with them. Neo was not surprised she knew about the Mermaid Country incident. Even though his brother tried to suppress his involvement, the important members of Great God and High God clans would know the news with their connections. Neo exhaled. He closed his eyes and sank back into the chair. 7 days and hundreds of demigods who bore grudge against him. It wasn't going to be easy. "Attention, students." The announcer gathered them. "All rank tokens have been distributed. We will now explain the rules and rewards." The rules were as Neo remembered. He focused on the rewards. Rank 1 will be awarded with Starplum Divine Fruit. Rank 2 approximately 10 will be awarded. Rank 11 approximately 100. Raw. Starplum Divine Fruit increased the purity of divine energy by directly 1 grade. Since Neo's purity was grade 1 awakened, he would rank up and reach grade 5 mythic rank purity after consuming the fruit. The rank increase would give his spells a major boost. I must get my hands on it. It was the only method for Neo to survive the Underworld. He had to win the Starplum fruit. The tournament will start tomorrow. You can do anything you want until then. The students were sent to the dormitories. There were 5 dormitories. First one was for rank 1 approximately 10, second for rank 11 approximately 100, third for rank 101 approximately 500, fourth for rank 501 approximately 1000, and the last building for rank 1001 approximately 2000. These dormitories were cheap knock-off of the real dormitories. The students had to use them until the tournament ended. Neo entered his allotted dorm. It was big and luxurious with 4 rooms, a kitchen, a hall, and a private gym. He had to share it with 3 more students. Instead of waiting, he decided to eat and pump his blood with divine energy. He ordered the food to his room. "I'd rather not go eat with everyone in the cafeteria. There is no need to go there and get harassed." Neo wasn't afraid of bullying. He just didn't want to waste divine energy on useless battles. While he ate the ordered food, a member of the dorm entered. The girl had unkempt pale blue hair that covered her sapphire eyes. She walked while looking at the ground, wore long-sleeved clothes and repeatedly pulled down the hood to hide her face. She noticed Neo in the hall. Their gazes intersected. "See, can you stop looking at me? It makes me feel dirty." She clicked her tongue and entered her room. Neo was left stunned. What did I even do to her? Actually, he knew what he did. Leonora was supposed to take rank 19 token. But perhaps due to Neo's action, the original top 10 students all took lower rank token. It forced students like Leonora, who were late to the registration hall, to take a top 10 tokens. She was in deep waters. At least according to her. Chapter 40, You Are a Loner Too. After the lunch, Neo trained until dinner and started training again after it. He could not help but look at Obidus. The sword couldn't be pulled out of the scabbard. For now, its only noteworthy quality was its off-charts durability. How am I supposed to get its acknowledgement? He needed the sword's permission to be able to pull it out. Unfortunately, he had no idea of how to achieve that. There were several weapons placed inside the private gym. Neo stood before a sword. I need a weapon for the competition. I guess I'll take one of these. He grabbed the sword. Suddenly, Obidus let out a jolt of electricity and tased him. The sword from the private gym fell out of his hands. He could hear a small voice in his head. Don't. Neo looked at Obidus helplessly. Are you saying I shouldn't use any weapon other than you? A wave of emotions appeared in Neo's head. Excitement, happiness, trust, and jealousy. The sword was throwing a tantrum. Neo was exasperated. Can you let me use you then? Can't. I'm weak. Need to feed on you more. The train of thoughts appearing inside his head was unsteady. Talking seemed to take a lot out of Obidus. It returned to sleep after answering Neo's questions. You are quite demanding, aren't you? Neo chuckled. The sword ate the divine energy leaking from his body. He had to keep it close at all times. Well, it's durable. I can use it as a club if nothing else. He left the gym late into the night. After he took a shower, the other two dorm members entered. One was a young male with golden locks and the other had lavender hair. Both of them were extremely handsome. Their sour expression, soiled clothes and bruises said quite a tale. Did these two go to the cafeteria together? Thank God, I ate in my room, Neo thought. Still, it's a welcome surprise to see them together. I thought the plot would have changed after I chose to be rank 1. Neo approached them with another set of towels. Thank you, said Arthur, the protagonist, tensely. He helped Felix walk and crashed on the couch with him. You two look terrible, Neo said while he ordered food. We had a fight in the cafeteria, Felix said. The delivery. Is it? Yeah, it's for you too. It's clear you used food to paint your clothes instead of eating it. Ha ha ha, the beating made me forget I hadn't eaten anything for a week, Arthur chuckled with a bitter sigh. Felix snapped his head towards Arthur. We didn't take a beating. We fought them. All right. Arthur let out a troubled smile. Before the delivery arrived, Neo used the kitchen and prepared coffee for them. I appreciate the coffee, but... Felix frowned. I need to sleep to be in my best form for tomorrow's battle royale. What about you? Neo turned to Arthur. I'll take it. Again, thank you. While they chatted casually, Neo could tell they were nervous around him. Did you two take a beating because you chose top 10 rank tokens? Neo asked. We weren't beaten. We just didn't fight back because the rules forbid battles before the competition, Felix retorted. And, you don't need to be sorry. While we had to choose the top 10 tokens because of your incident, we would have still been harassed if it didn't happen, Felix said awkwardly but bluntly. Yeah, it's my fault, Arthur sighed. Felix was involved because he was with me. Huh? No, it was because of me. Those guys were there to harass me. You got involved in my mess, Felix retorted. The three looked at each other awkwardly. All of them had reasons to be targeted by the students. Their expressions were saying you too. Turns out they were all loners. I guess we don't need to know why the students are after you, Felix said to Neo. He turned to Arthur. But why would they target you? You are a new face. It's because of my name, I think. Everyone was shocked when I told them my full name. Arthur scratched his cheek. What is your name? Felix asked. While they spoke, the delivery arrived. Neo stood up and took the order from the door. The other two waited for him to return before they continued talking. Neo unpacked the food while Arthur opened his mouth. Arthur Kingsley. What? Felix jumped to his feet. His eyes and hands quivered as he pointed at Arthur. Why, your family name is Kingsley. Yeah? Is it a weird name? I don't know why everyone was reacting so strongly. You don't know. Neo, tell him. Felix stopped speaking when he noticed Neo unpacking the delivery calmly. Hey, he just said his name is Kingsley. The Kingsley. Why are you so composed? I'm shocked. See? Neo tried to fake a surprised expression which earned a chuckle from Arthur. Felix held his head, wondering what rotten luck he had to meet these lunatics. He took a deep breath. Sigh, do you really don't know what's special about Kingsley's surname? No. Were you living under a rock? Not a rock, but yes, I was somewhere similar. Talking to Arthur made Felix's blood pressure high. He took repeated breaths to calm himself and spoke. Kingsley is the family name only the direct children of great sky god, Zeus, can use. Arthur tilted his head. And? It's not like anyone else can't use the family name. It is like that. There is no rule against it, but it is common sense to not use Kingsley as your family name. You aren't the son of great sky god, Zeus. You aren't even from the Zeus clan. Felix plopped to the sofa. He was tired. Why did he have to meet an idiot like Arthur? Felix's cause of getting harassed was nothing in front of Arthur's cause. He turned to Neo with an exhausted expression. Please don't tell me you chose rank 1 because of a stupid reason too.